Well, happy hump day to you. We are halfway through the week already. It's finally here, I guess. I have to drive out of the state today. I'm going to go to a beautiful Moab, Utah. I'm going to preside. Is it officiate? There's some term over a wedding tomorrow, and then drive right back on Friday. I'll be on the air with you Friday. But tomorrow, do you know who's going to be in, Billy?
That'll be Peter.
Somebody named Peter is going to be filling in tomorrow. The weather today, 58 degrees. That's a nice change from the past couple. Shoots up to 65 Thursday, 68 Friday, and then we kind of mellow out and start hovering around that high 50s, low 60s. The officiating the wedding thing, for people who are like, wow, is that a superpower that you have? No. In the state of Colorado, anybody can officiate a wedding. It turns out you don't have to be an elected DA or a radio host or anything like that. I did go online some years ago and get my certificate from the something Ministry of Online something or other. I'm not really sure the name of it. I have the certificate somewhere. It's coveted. Probably should be framed. But I've done 3 weddings now, and this will be my 4th. The first one outside the state of Colorado. I've done some loose legal research in Utah, and I'm nearly positive that what we're about to do is legal and binding on both parties. But I think that they each appreciate that there's that out, that they could come back at a future time and say, I don't think he was authorized to do it, so we're not really married. It's a nice little asterisk to put on the whole thing. I hope they never have to use that card, but there it is.
How have the other weddings turned out? I mean, is this a kind of indication that it's going to be a long, wonderful relationship, or the fact that this is going to be undone in like 2 weeks in Vegas?
Yeah, no, listen, it's an honor for someone to ask me to do something like that. I mean, it's a little intimidating because you think, wait, there's definitely a legal aspect to this. And I think we lose sight of the fact that is separate from the potential spiritual religious aspect of this. I'm not the spiritual religious part of this process, but I am the legal part of this process. And it's humbling to get a chance to do this. I've done it for good friends. I mean, friend of the show, Dustin Zvonek, city councilman. I
like that because and one of the things that, that lower level there that you kind of pointed out that I think is very important that many people forget in some of the conversations about marriage in this country is that we do have 2 types of marriage.
It's 2.
Yeah, we have a religious marriage and we have a civil marriage. And one is based on contract law and is agreement between 2 adults. And the other is a promise in front of the community, your friends, family, and God. And in my mind, we should treat them differently. They are different, but they do, sit in the same realm. But many times in this country, we forget that we do have 2 different.
I think that's true, but and I think it's in large part because historically those 2 little circles in the Venn diagram are eclipses. They sit right on top of each other, so you lose sight of the fact that there's these different things. But I got a chance to do it for our old communications director from the DA's office, a good friend. I did it for right-hand man at the Aurora Theater trial and one of my senior chiefs.
Do you have do you have a special outfit or something you wear?
Well, I wear whatever they want me to wear, and except for this one. This one, they've said, hey,
you know where my mind is going with
can
this.
Can you
yes.
No one's asked that. But they said, hey, could you wear a cowboy hat?
Oh, okay.
And I said, my head is not built for a cowboy hat. I do own one, but sadly, when it was purchased for me, and it was through this thing called the Rustlers, where it's a giant thing that Larry Meisel and some others do.
They hide in leaves and they
That's right. That's right. Shake the leaves.
Yeah.
But this thing is just a little bit too big. So you have my dopey giant noggin that sits down, and my ears keep it from really crossing over my eye line. I look like a bigger dork than I do on a normal basis. And I'm like, I don't need help. Yeah. Okay, I'm there. All right.
Now, if you had enough time, if you didn't have to leave today, my suggestion would be to, just for fun, go buy one of those giant foam cowboy hats and just show up with that and go, is this going to work?
I should
not have that, but
like the old Burt Reynolds character, Turd Ferguson, from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
With,
I wish I would have known
that old big foam hat. Hey, Turd Ferguson.
I wish I would have known. I have a cowboy hat that, again, may not necessarily be appropriate, but you definitely could have borrowed it, from the house. Well, and I've got two,
not appropriate. Do tell.
Yes. Well, it happens to be something that for it'd be a Valentine's party years ago. But it is a typical cowboy hat. However, it's done in all red. It's all bright red. Has some hearts on it, which again, kind of marriage. And if you reach inside, you turn it on, and it
vibrates.
blinks.
Oh, blinking,
Yes.
buddy! I do need that hat
blinks.
actually,
It
because it
blinks.
turns out that is wedding appropriate.
Yes.
It feels very Vegas-y drive-through wedding.
Yeah.
So Alexa
wonderful.
texted in, how desperate are people to have to hire you to officiate a wedding? Nobody hires me. I
No.
won't take money for it. One, it's an honor, but two, that I think actually creates a contract, and I don't want anybody to have any legal recourse against me. So I will take no money for any of these things. It's just a huge honor. This particular couple, great young couple, the woman I got to know, this is such a weird story, but
now you have my attention.
At the conclusion of the Aurora Theater case, there was, actually before the Aurora Theater case, there were 2 DU law professors who generated a law article, I'm using air quotes here, that sought to claim that Colorado's death penalty was racist in its application and that it violated all these things. And they used some very specious statistics. And in fact, it turns out that all the research they did for their article had been paid for probably by us, but by the defense, for a guy who had clubbed a prison guard to death with a heavy metal soup ladle. His name was Edward Montour. And he did it while he was serving a sentence for murdering his 11-week-old daughter by bashing her against a wall down in Colorado Springs. So guy's pure evil. And they ended up getting hired by the defense to do this research so that they could file these motions. It's been brought before 3 different judges, and 3 different judges in the state have said, no, this is garbage. I'm not going to accept this. So at the end of the Aurora Theater case, a guy named Rich Orman and I generated a law article, super researched, and submitted it to DU that was in essence a rebuttal to this. And it was called Lies, Damn Lies, and Anti-Death Penalty Legal Researchers.
Nice.
And the editor of the DU Law Review at the time was this woman that I'm going to marry tomorrow. And I had never met her before.
That's an awkward sentence.
Yeah. Well, well, it's Utah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a group thing.
I'd never met her before, but she had been in contact over the editing and all this other stuff. I come to find out after this thing gets published that this was really a profiling character for this young woman who was, here she is, a law student.
Yeah.
She's the editor-in-chief of what is supposed to be this independent DU Law Review. It's pretty coveted. And what I find out that's going on in the background when all this is happening is that the 2 DU law professors find out that we're generating a column critical of their garbage work, and they go nuts.
Oh.
They start putting, and they're very popular professors with the wingnutty DU law students, very impressionable. And they start putting pressure on her they're like, don't publish this. Why are you publishing this? And she's like, we're independent. This is this is a good article. This is something we want to put out there. And by the way, the 2 professors didn't publish in the DU Law Review. They published it like CU or something like that, which is weird.
That is
weird. Yeah, weird. So then all of a sudden, other professors start putting pressure on. This is a student putting pressure on her and the rest of the editorial board. Why are you doing this? You shouldn't be doing this. This is bad for these professors. This is bad, blah, blah. And she's like, listen, man, I mean, I can't picture a law student whose grades depend upon these people standing up to this withering and growing pressure. And she continues to press on. And I didn't realize that's why we got crushed with prove this sentence, provide the proof for this sentence. And I think at the end of the day, what I concluded was she knew they were going to try to pillory this thing and pick it apart. And so she's like, I'm going to make it bulletproof, and you're going to help me make it bulletproof without ever telling me the backstory till it was over. Smart. It got to the point where professors were resigning from the DU Law Review board. Yeah, the advisory were because they were so pissed off that they would publish this law review article that was critical of these 2 prized goofy professors that had, by the way, combined practiced 15 seconds of criminal law in their lives, and yet they were experts on the death penalty. And she still pressed on, and we got this thing published, and it came out in DU. I hear about this months later. We ended up chatting about something, and she was like, I just need to tell you the story of what happened behind the scenes. And I remember thinking, you are so gutsy and courageous, man, to do that and to press on. And she ends up becoming an attorney. She moves to Montana, where she's from. She was, in fact, at one point earlier in her life, Miss Montana.
Oh, wow.
She goes back, moves in with
Not Hannah Montana.
Not Hannah Montana. No. Close.
Yeah,
close.
very close.
But she goes back up there, ends up in Bozeman, meets a guy, they fall in love, and the rest is kind of history. But I didn't get to know her until, some years ago through this thing. And I just remember being taken with the guts and the courage. Like a lot of other people would have found it easy to say, hey, sorry, this just isn't the right article for us, not the right time, and give in. And she was like, no, screw you. We're an independent, law review. You don't tell us what to publish or what not to publish. And they were like, no. So it gets published.
Yeah.
It's devastating, in my opinion. If you read this thing, it's just haymaker after haymaker at these two clowns for their nonsense that they put out. And, for instance, some of the research they did was they read an article about a murder case from the 60s and then drew conclusions about why the death penalty was pursued and the motive. Anyway, it was just nuts. So they then allowed them, I think after she left or at the tail end of her time there, they coerced the remaining board members into allowing them to unprecedented write a rebuttal to our law review article.
Hey,
never happens.
Right? Yeah.
So they put that out, and I just thought, and this is wonderful. I love being the fly in the ointment.
Yeah. And for me, I understand how difficult that is as a student, getting the pressure from the professors. But the one question during the entire story I kept thinking about was, why shouldn't these voices be heard? They are taking an alternative view. They're taking an alternative approach. And if you cannot, inside of it, and I have a lot of criticism to academia currently, and we've seen a lot of it involved with the Israel-Palestine. And some of my opinion about what's going on in college campuses is not necessarily popular, but what I think is, if you cannot spend the time when you're on a college campus criticizing, critiquing what many people hold as something that is obvious, if you can't allow someone with an alternate voice to stand up and say something, then you're not doing this right. Now,
that's right.
Yeah, and I disagree with a lot of the groups that have been on college campuses that have been very pro-Hamas. And I've disagreed with some of the colleges and their approach to it. Because for me, it's the idea of, yes, you can have this alternative point of view. You're allowed to express this alternative point of view. Now let's come back and let's talk to some of the people from Israel. Let's come back and talk to this. This is an opportunity for an exchange of ideas. And that's what the person that you were involved with was trumpeting. This is a chance to take what, and again, oddly enough, the professors didn't even publish it on DU inside of their internal communications, but the idea of to explore the other side from an alternative point of view, and not one that is saying these people are dumb, idiot, horrible. And that's part of the problem. Again, I'm kind of going a little far afield. Part of the problem that I have with people on college campuses right now that are doing protests and things for being pro-Hamas is I believe they are inaccurately conflating the Palestinians and Hamas in ways that really shouldn't. And I think that they are, with very, very broad brushes and inaccurately painting the actions of Israel without good historical context. And this, to me, while I disagree with it, again, is a time in which you got to let, on college campuses, you've got to let some of these ideas, that's the idea, to
by the way,
go back and forth.
Many of the pro-Palestinian people are making it easy to suggest that they're conflating Hamas with how they make it, because they don't distance themselves from Hamas. They don't decry Hamas.
Nope.
Where are the Palestinian groups to say, screw Hamas, help us get rid of Hamas, we'll help you find, but they don't do it. But they're like, don't treat us like them, but we do nothing to help you.
Which the same thing post 9/11 is you kept talking about, oh, no, it's not all Arabs that are doing this. You can't say that ISIS. But what we didn't see were the leaders in Arab communities. There were a few, but there were very few in and around countries in the Middle East speaking up, going, no, this is not okay.
Right.
What happened
Where's
was not
that?
Okay. Yeah, and that's what we need in this statement as well. This is not okay.
No, it's not okay. The other thing I don't want to be heard saying is I'm not critical of DU, the institution. Look, my mom, that's my mom's law school alma mater. She went back in her 40s with 3 little kids at home. And I've been teaching there as an adjunct professor since I got off active duty in 2002. So, I mean, 20
Yeah.
plus years I've been an adjunct there. And I think one of the great strengths of DU over my own alma mater, CU, is they have a night program, which I
Yeah,
think
that
really
helps.
honors the reality that there are a lot of potential good attorneys out there, including sometimes like parents who took off their career to raise kids or whatever, who now
Yeah.
want to get back in. CU doesn't permit that. They're only a day program. So I love that. That's what the program my mom went through. But more than that, they have a robust trial advocacy program that involves actual practitioners. These guys that wrote the initial garbage article, they're not practitioners. And what I've detected is with some of these law professors, and not limited to DU, their egos are so fragile and so frail that any criticism sends them off the deep end. I mean, it's like, stay off of social media, brother, because you are going to get, please don't do talk radio because you're going to get punched right in the crown jewels. That's just how it works. But these guys spend their lives teaching a class or two to adoring students who think that everything they say is like the burning bush. And they publish and their stuff shows up in print and they get accolades and money and they work several hours a week and all that. And then when someone shows up to say, I think what you did sucks, it's like, oh, I mean, the pearl clutching. Oh my God, I'm a professor.
That's a really good insight, because I do believe that oftentimes, especially, I wouldn't say necessarily in the high school on down, but in the higher education, inside of the college realm, there is kind of a sense of infallibility that over a number of years, many professors get, because they've been in charge. If you figure out what has been, think about if you've been a professor, and just for you, let's say that you've been on campus for 20 years, let's say that you've, fully tenured, everything else, you have been the master of your domain, to borrow a phrase from Seinfeld.
In a different way.
Yes.
In a different way.
And so you have been allowed to, you're the first, last, and only voice that really matters inside of your classes. And when you're guiding these students, your voice is the one that matters most. You are given a lot of this responsibility, and there is a lot of deference to that position. And many times I think that does, like you accurately pointed out, feed the ego to where, well, because I am always right. In my classes, I'm always right. In my tests, I'm always right. In my lectures, I'm always right. Then when I get out into the real world, confronting things that say, no, maybe you're not right, is very difficult.
And to the extent that they encourage any dissent at all with students, and I've seen this, it's to strike them down in front of the others.
Yeah.
It's not to encourage, okay, let's explore that position, or, like kind of like we do here on the radio. I'll tell you I disagree, but let's keep talking about the thing.
Yep.
They don't do it that way. And it reminds me now of the Monty Python skit. All the dudes are standing around in white t-shirts and white shorts. And the one guy is like, now I will teach you how to defend yourself from someone attacking you with a banana.
Yes.
Do you remember that? And then every question was, what if he has a pointed stick?
Yes.
Shut up.
Shut up. It's a banana.
What if he has a bunch? Shut up.
Yes, exactly.
It feels like that kind of an environment when they do that. But
and I had professors like that. I had professors that were not wanting anything, and they only wanted to call out people in order to make them look bad. And then I had professors that genuinely wanted the exchange of ideas. I had a poli-sci professor.
Best classes.
She was amazing. Yeah.
Best classes.
Yeah.
I just don't think we get that as much anymore. There's a, man, if we want to talk about all the problems with higher education, first off, I'm going to go big and bold right here. Law school doesn't need to be 3 years. It is a waste of time and money with very little return for that third year. The first year, incredibly important because they break your brain, and they do. You start reading articles and seeing things, and you analyze them differently. And when you and I talk about things, sometimes you can detect that as that, like, you're very common sensey. The law, not common sensey, right? So,
and I do that a lot. I always sit there and go, I don't know what the law says about this.
Yeah, that's right. Because it wants to be common sensey, but it's not common sensey.
No.
So you start to change the way you look at the world and sort of understanding, start thinking in terms of authorities and guardrails that the law provides and limitations, and then ins and outs and all that stuff. That's an incredible year. The second year is really the substantive year where they, crush you with things that are much more substantive and all this.
Yeah. Can you do the work kind of a thing?
Can you do the work?
And this is the amount of work you're going to have to do. Can you turn it? Yeah.
The third year is a waste of time. Oh my God. The third year, in my opinion, should be like every other profession out there. And it ends up becoming like an apprenticeship. For instance,
that'd be smart.
If you go to medical school and graduate, the day after you graduate, you don't go out and start conducting surgeries and performing you don't do that. You do a residency, right? Law is if you're a plumber, you don't go out the day you get your plumber license and certification and start but law is one where they're like, hey, the day after you get sworn in, you can go ahead and represent President Donald Trump on a stolen election case. Like, what?
Yeah, wait a minute.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, that doesn't.
There needs to be some built-in apprenticeship. And the reason that there is an industry of law schools out there that will fight this tooth and nail, because giving up 1/3 of a kid's payment to them there's no chance. Yeah, that means we're going to have to fire professors, and it means we won't need all the big facilities. And that's right. That's exactly what it means. We need to redo the way we teach law here. You know who else doesn't do it this way? UK. UK doesn't do this either. True. You have to have this apprenticeship through the solicitor barrister part. As far as I know, we're the only civilized nation, Western civilized nation, that has this law thing where we just say, you're good to go. And by the way, you're ethically bound not to take cases that are beyond your competence. Good luck.
Yeah. And you've done nothing so far.
You've never set foot in a courtroom. We'll make you AG.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That is crazy.
It's ridiculous.
That is really weird to think about.
That's a real diversion from, I'm going to marry a couple of great young people tomorrow in Utah.
I love the fact that you talked about how you start looking at the world differently, because that rolls into, and we won't spoil it right now, but rolls into one of the topics we were talking about. Because you're coming at it, and we were talking about it off the air, and you're like, no, but the law, and what does this say and this say? I'm like, but does it on common sense side? Can someone do X, Y, and Z and still expect to be employed? And
right?
It was a really interesting conversation, and that it perfectly highlighted the difference between how you were analyzing what was going on and how I was.
In no way am I telling you that lawyers are particularly smart, and I've told students this that think about law school all the time.
Yeah.
Take a look around at all the chuckleheads who are practicing law out there. And we'll talk about one of them during the show. And chucklehead's too strong for her, but all the people out there practicing law, look at them and say, are they smarter than me? And the answer is every single time, no. You want to go to law school, all you got to do is take the LSAT, apply, get in, and go do it. If you just simply go, you show up every day, you do the things you need to do. Maybe you're not going to graduate Order of the Coif or whatever. I wouldn't even know what that is. I was nowhere near that.
Is that the fish?
It could be. It's Coif, but maybe it's Koi with an F at the end.
I was thinking,
maybe it's effing Koi or something.
Effing Koi. I like that.
But are you going to graduate? Yes. And are you going to pass the bar? Yeah. I mean, statistics say after your first try, but if not after your first try, maybe it's the second or third try. Who cares, right? Like, you want to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a genius to be a lawyer. And please don't mistake lawyers for people smarter than you. That's another mistake. We've talked about this before. There are a whole group of attorneys I worked with, I hired and promoted. And once they ascend to the bench, once they become judges, simply because a commission sent them to the governor's desk and he touched them, all of a sudden it's like, I am the genius in the room. It's like, no, you're still the same guy.
Well, it's you missed it. It's not because it's the robe.
Once
you get
the
long
is like the
robe,
superpowers.
Yes, that is it. You get all. You're imbibed with all of the wisdom and all of the knowledge once you get that long flowing robe.
Yeah, that's it.
The secret.
Maybe that's the greatest American hero thing. You know what I mean? He puts on the robe and he learns.
Yes,
but it's almost universal, but not. I mean, the great judges that are out there because you sense it with them. They understand their role. They understand their authority, and their authority is greater than yours inside that courtroom. There's no doubt about it. But there are some for whom, again, it's like the professor thing. They're in a room where when they walk in, everybody stands up. When they start talking, everybody shuts up. When they make a joke, no matter how stupid, everybody laughs. When they say things, they have the force of law. That can't help but prey upon a weak mind. You know what I mean? True. Like a weak, fragile ego sees that and they're like, I've arrived. Billy, all rise. I mean, when you walk, all rise. When you sit in a courtroom, look at a judge. They're sitting in an elevated desk.
That's true.
They think it's about them. It's like, no, because you represent the law. The law is elevated. It's not you, dude.
It's not you. That is a great perception. I hadn't thought about that before. That's a really good insight.
And that sort of dovetails off of what we talked about yesterday. I ended up writing a column for the Gazette about it. But
how'd that go? Good.
Yes. I just, anytime you write something critical of a judge and you're a lawyer, and it's respectfully critical, you think to yourself, I may appear in front of that judge someday. This isn't a judge from another state. This is a judge from up the road, where it's like, oh, do we
Yeah.
have business in front of Judge Wallace?
Yeah.
I might not come to court that day.
Yeah,
You know,
you don't want Judge Wallace to pull out a 3-ring binder and go, let's review your clippings.
no, and I
As you're going through
presume that would go unspoken. Nobody's
Yeah.
stupid enough to reference that on the record, but it would be that look as I'm sitting
yeah.
there, that knowing look of,
Yeah. Oh, they would just
I
they
gotcha.
would just hold it up and just kind of page through it.
yeah.
that's all
So
it
it's
would
not on the
be. Yeah,
record.
not
It
at
would just
all.
be like,
Yeah.
yes,
yes.
welcome. Is it Brauchler?
Yes.
Do
It
you
would-
write
yeah.
for the Gazette? I think I
think.
heard something
Yeah.
about that.
On the front of the 3-ring binder, it would say "Stupid things George wrote," and they would just flash it to you. And
that's actually an entire bound volume at the DA's office. It's a historical retrospective.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
I have one of those at home. We're in volume 4.
Yeah.
Stupid things my dad has said. That's,
One
and
of the-
it's all focused on me.
One of the hardest jobs, I presume, was to be my director of communications,
Yeah.
because early on people would say, like, I've drafted some talking points for you. And I'm like, why? I mean,
have you met me?
I don't know if you've seen how I
Yeah.
do this. I just sort of show up, go
Yeah.
Tasmanian devil verbally,
Yeah.
and then we leave the room. That's just how it works. And so I could see it was like that first hill on a roller coaster. Whenever a press conference would start, you'd see them dig their fingers into
Yeah.
the chair things like, here we go, here we go.
Yeah.
Is he
What's
going to
going
drop
on?
the F-bomb? Is he going to say something that gets him grieved? Like, here we go.
Oh.
And invariably it worked out.
I would have loved working in communications office.
Yeah. Oh, buddy,
I
it
would have
is.
encouraged it.
There is that Rossini entrance of the Gladiators music constantly.
Yes.
That boop, boop, boop,
Oh, yeah.
boop, 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 boop,
That is fantastic.
Oh, it is an utter clown show, and I am the lead clown /
Oh, that's
ringmaster.
wonderful.
But it always worked out well. And frankly, here's what I regret right now,
Yeah.
finishing this up, looking at the clock and seeing that we didn't once get to talk about
No.
the candy thing.
Oh my God, we didn't at all.
What
Holy
the hell? We
crap.
still got
Yeah.
time. We're nowhere near a record.
No, but we could do candy later. Or do we do it?
We could do candy later. We
Yeah,
could, but
maybe.
we could cut away
Yeah.
now and give ourselves breathing room to do the Thorpe report
Yeah,
and you
to do
choose the
other
news,
stuff.
or we just keep going. I mean, really,
I don't know.
I don't care. It's hump day.
Let's take the break and let's figure out what's because maybe after news we do the candy thing. Let's see what happens.
Are
see
we
what works.
still on air as you and I are discussing how to do the show, or did we mute this?
No, I think it's still on.
We're
there,
still on?
Unfortunately, I see it. Oh yeah, and we're on the little rumbly thing too. So yeah,
What?
It's, yeah.
And the YouTubes?
Yep, and the tubs. Yep.
You know what? In honor of Stefan, let's rename it the YouTubes.
Oh yeah, it's the tubs.
That guy, by the way, if you haven't been paying attention, he's got 2 days in a wake up here before he pops
Yeah.
smoke and leaves the landing zone here.
It's gonna make it weird.
3 shows left, and I look at his text feed in here, and as
Yeah.
you know, we text the hell out of stuff. He is man, he's clearly living his best life right
Yes,
now.
he is.
You know what I mean? Like he's doing
enjoying
great
this.
stuff on the radio.
That's
Enjoying.
good.
I think it's going to be hard for him to leave, and that's why I still predict at about 6:50
Yeah.
on Friday he announces an extension
Yes.
of the Stephen Tubbs farewell tour. Sorry, Officer
Yes.
Brandon Tatum, you're just going to have to stay in Arizona a little bit longer.
Yeah, just like they do with concerts and other tours. They oftentimes go, oh, we've added a few more dates.
Yeah, that's right. We've added a few more dates.
We're sticking on the road. Yeah.
This is Stephen Tubbs' Eras tour
Yes,
right
it
here,
is.
and it will last for eras.
Yes,
for
it
many,
will.
many eras.
It will.
We're going to cut away for a break. We're going to come back. We're going to do that Thorpe report stuff, and then we'll get to the much more uplifting news of the day, largely because none of it ever seems to happen here in Colorado. It's called You Choose the News. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Let's get updated on a segment we could call Guess the Number of Stabbings and Shootings in the Denver metro area. It's called the Thorpe Report with Billy.
Good morning, sir. First, we're going to cover that weather. 58 degrees today, partly cloudy. 65 tomorrow, 68 by Friday, back into the mid-60s. Saturday, Sunday, and a little cooler weather tomorrow. Father, this is odd. Father, this is really sad, too. Father says a teenager shot him 4 times after he picked up his 4th grader from Rocky Mountain Prep Southwest in Denver, October 4th. They're not really sure. Denver police have arrested the teen in connection with the shooting. Angelo Duran was shot in the lung, the bladder, the colon, and the spleen.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and there's still a bullet inside his spine that has paralyzed him.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Now, what happened is October 4th, Duran was picking up his 9-year-old son from the elementary school that's near Kentucky Avenue and Federal Boulevard. His son hopped into the car. That's when Duran saw a kid on campus, teenager, with a gun.
Oh, no.
He was on the school grounds with that gun. He said literally 1 car away from the main office to my son's school. So the teenager then threatened another kid with the gun and then tried to run away. Duran leapt into action. He said, I couldn't let the guy just run away. I had this feeling that I needed to intervene. While he was chasing, the kid turned around and fired at him, hitting him 4 times.
Oh, my good
yeah.
Lord.
So now he's in the hospital, is working through therapy. And thankfully, they've arrested the kid, but that's just tragic.
What dude? One, that dude's a hero and super brave. 2, incredible that shooting while running, you could hit someone 4 times.
Oh, yeah.
But this can't be true, Billy, because we passed a law that juveniles can't buy firearms.
No, they can't have them. It's illegal.
This
so that's
can't
never
be true.
happens.
It couldn't have ever happened.
Couldn't. And one of the things that was nice is the father said, yeah, he goes, there are a little bit of regrets. He goes, but I can't regret the choice that I made because I did it to keep my son and the school safe. So,
God, man, that dude's life is changed forever.
Forever because of this. And I wish that I wish there were times in it that where individuals involved in gun violence at whatever level would understand that a 3-year-old has the ability to pull the trigger and that can change people's lives forever. So just because you're holding that gun in your hand doesn't make you a man, doesn't make you smart, doesn't make you an adult just because you're holding that, because a child can fire a firearm at somebody. So just because you make that choice.
Was this guy that shot him?
They didn't say. They just said teenager. They haven't
teenager. The good news is, and I think this is in the Denver area. Is that right?
Yeah.
The good news is a teenager in Denver shooting another human being will face many, many months of incarceration.
Oh, yeah. Probably. And many, many months of just talking to you about it.
Yeah. Probably gets to go back to school, by the way, because remember, and we'll talk about this later today, too. Denver Public Schools stated policy from the superintendent is somebody like that gets to go right back to school.
Yeah, because the shooting did not happen on campus.
Didn't happen on campus. Nope. Sadly, he was chased off campus.
Yes.
If he had just shot someone on campus, maybe they keep him out of class.
Maybe, but then it's still iffy.
Good
boyfriend of a woman who was killed on a train en route to Denver in September of 2016 has been arrested on first-degree murder. The 41-year-old was arrested earlier this week, charged with 1 count of first-degree murder in connection with the death of his 28-year-old girlfriend at the time. According to the arrest affidavit, the couple and their 4 children took a train from Wisconsin to Denver. When the train arrived at Union Station September 1st of 2016, the wife was deceased. It said told officers at the time that they had been living in Racine, Wisconsin, were moving back to Denver, tried to wake her about 20 minutes before they arrived to Denver, unable to wake her.
Tried to wake her with a mallet.
Yeah, so basically, he's been arrested for first-degree murder charges. Also, we have a man that was killed and 2 other people injured after a semi crashed into a disabled vehicle on Sunday night on I-70. The crash happened on I-70. We're at around Wadsworth Boulevard, 9:30 p.m. Police say a vehicle was towing another vehicle with a tow strap. The strap broke, stranding the disabled vehicle in the center lane. 2 men backed up to the towing vehicle and were trying to reattach the tow strap when a fully loaded semi crashed into both vehicles. The semi driver didn't see the disabled vehicle in the middle lane. Man who was under the disabled vehicle trying to reattach the tow strap died at the scene. So not good at all. Also, this was supposed to be a big helper in the fight against RSV, but a newly approved drug meant to prevent the virus in bebes and toddlers is now very, very hard to find. So if you have a young one, you got to contact your doctor because they put a restriction on who can get the RSV medication. Infants priorities are infants 6 months and younger, along with any infant with underlying health conditions. And our Colorado Supreme Court is deciding whether or not Republican Chaffee County District Attorney Linda Stanley could lose her law license after her handling of the Barry Morphew case and the disappearance of his wife, Suzanne.
We can talk about that for sure later. I've got that complaint right in front of me.
Oh, good. We'll talk about that. That's all I got. Yeah.
Buddy, that's good stuff. I think the most uplifting thing that you read there was
The weather.
the weather,
Yeah.
actually. Out of
It's
all
just
of those
awful.
things,
Yeah,
it's that could be called You Choose the Blues, only we're
It
not
is.
really. You've
Yeah.
chosen the blues.
Oh, I
Actually, it's
have.
Billy chooses the
it's
blues.
awful. And
as a
you run
something.
through these, and you're kind of like, well, that sucks.
I
That
know.
sucks.
It's just
That
like,
sucks.
what the
Yeah.
heck, man? We need some. We should have done the sugar stuff. Maybe we'll do the candy later.
Yeah, we can do that.
We're going to cut away for a break. We're going to come back. Ample opportunity to slow roll the You Choose the News, which is the best stuff. So get yourself ready. If you've been drinking while you're driving, first stop. You shouldn't be doing that at all. But to pull over to the side of the road, put the windows up, crank the heat up, put on the seatbelt. This is it right here. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here on The George Show, 710 KNUS. I don't know what we do with all the extra time here, but it is time for the good stuff. That's You Choose the News with William T.
Yes, sir. It is that time again for us to play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. You Choose the News. Yes, we have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning to find really stupid stories, to give them fake headlines, to play this really dumb radio news game because, well, they're paying us to do it. And again, I'm as shocked as you are. I don't understand why, but hey, it's continuing. So let's earn our money, sir. Alrighty. Headline number 1, technical flaw equals maximum damage. Headline number 2, you're doing it wrong, cold edition. Headline number 3, no boat involved. And headline number 4, surprise masterpiece discovery. Your headlines yet again are technical flaw equals maximum damage. You're doing it wrong, cold edition, no boat involved, and surprise masterpiece discovery.
Maximum damage.
Maximum damage. That's what Ukraine has recently inflicted upon Russia. But it was much a surprise to the Ruskies. Why? Well, recently Russia has been employing the powerful Pole 21 GPS jammer. Yes, it is not anything about a dance club. It actually jams technical communications. Now, what happens is it cuts down things like GPS and all other basic communications. It makes it very difficult to use drones or any other GPS-guided munitions at all. So the Russians have been protecting a lot of their installations with this Pole 21 GPS jammer. And recently, the Ukrainians were able to destroy it, which seems odd. Yes. And they did it with a GPS-guided missile. Again, little bit odd. How did they possibly destroy the GPS jammer with a GPS-guided missile? Well, let's just say that maybe the Russian version of the Pole 21 GPS jammer isn't necessarily up into our century. It does jam communications, everything, radio signals, all of it. But it does jam all of it, including your own.
No,
so all the Ukrainians did is wait for them to turn it off so they could communicate, and they went, okay, now fire the missile. So in order for Russia to communicate, they had to turn off their Pole 21 GPS jammer in order to communicate. And when they did that, the Ukrainians went, surprise, push the button, and everything goes boom. Yeah, again, how did you not see this coming? But good on the Ukrainians.
I thought it was going to be something like somebody secreted in an Apple AirTag or something like that and just slid it on there.
I love the fact that in the planning meeting, it'd be, what if we just wait until they stop turning it off?
Or when you're the Russian guys and you're like, this thing is the bomb, man.
Yeah,
while this thing is on, it is devastating. And someone asked the question, well, wait a minute. What do we do about this? Like, well, we just turn it off for a little bit, and then we turn it back on.
Yes,
and it'll all be great. What are the odds they're going to find us within that limited period of time? Click, 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 like lights. Click, click.
Yes,
click,
exactly. That's exactly what it was. Like, oh, well. Okay, the next one. You're doing it wrong, cold edition, no boat involved, or surprise masterpiece discovery.
You're doing it wrong.
You are doing it wrong. In fact, the doctors, the hippies and the science coats and stuff want to tell you you're doing it wrong when you are blowing your nose, especially during the season of colds. They're telling you that most of us are incorrectly trying to, dispel and get all the disgusting mucus out of our schnoz. When you are blowing your nose, how do you do it, sir? Do you grab the tissue and then just wrap it around your nostrils and blow out? Or do you close one nostril and blow and then close the other nostril and blow? What is your technique? And let's find out if you're doing it wrong. Mr. Brauchler.
1, I go one nostril and blow, but 2, I do it like a farmer. That's what we would call it. And I just say, why waste paper? I love trees. So I just turn to the side, make sure there's no one behind me, and just,
explains the odd stain we have in the studio over there. But
crusty now.
Actually, you are doing it absolutely correct.
Thank you.
The thing that you're supposed to do is place one finger against one nostril,
of course,
apply light pressure, and then blow, and then go and clean out the other. Yeah.
Wait, that's where I'm screwing up.
Then you clean out the other nostril. And they say if you're blowing your nose hard enough to where you're popping your ears, you're doing it wrong. In
Ah.
fact, if you're doing that, you can actually fracture a very thin bone between your eye socket and your sinuses.
What?
Yes. So it would
Oh my
require,
goodness,
it's a
man.
lot of pain and everything else. So if you're blowing so hard, you're popping your ears, you're in danger of fracturing a really tiny bone that is between your eye socket and your
I
and your,
usually only
sinuses.
experience that during the morning constitutional.
There we
That
go.
is the
And on that note, alrighty. And your final choice this morning: no boat involved or surprise masterpiece discovery.
surprise masterpiece discovery.
Yes, this is a surprise masterpiece discovery. It was really weird when they discovered a hidden masterpiece by Artemisia Gentileschi.
Gesundheit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She is a Baroque painter that rose to fame because she's a she. At the time, females weren't allowed to really be painters. They weren't allowed as artists. So she's one of the more unusual painters during the Baroque period. But one of her masterpieces, Hampton Court Palace, was her most recent. What's the title of it? Because it was found in the Hampton Court Palace. Is where they found this masterpiece, and they found it in a closet.
Huh. In a closet?
Yes. Oh, it's the self-portrait of the allegory of painting is what it was. But they found it in a closet. It had been misidentified for years and years and years. In fact, there were some art history people that said, hey, they were going through Charles I's art collection, found notes of this specific painting, tried to track it down, and figured out it had been misidentified since, 1650. And people didn't
come out of the
know
closet.
it was that, and they actually had to clean it off and do the restoration and everything else. So now it's going to be put on exhibition. It was just sitting in a closet. Yeah.
Magical.
I know. You should go check your closet. I'm going to check mine.
Listen, we'll come out of the closet just in time to do the second hour of the show. It's a surprise to everyone involved, us included. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. It's hour 2 of 4 on 710 KNUS. We're with you till 10. Then Chuck Kirk, Dennis Prager, Seb Gorka, then back live and local with Deb Flora. Give her a listen. Reach out to Deb. Hit her with the texts and the phone calls. Try to stump her with your questions. That's all I'm saying is try to engage Deb in a way that makes it super, super fun to be on from 3 to 4, because 4 to 7, it becomes the tear fest. In many ways, the radio trail of tears for Stephen Tubbs, who is doing his swan song here as he's getting ready to punch out at 7 o'clock, actually 6:56 and 50 seconds on Friday, November the 3rd. That'll be the last time that Stephen Tubbs, using that name, will legally be on the radio. No, I'm not foreshadowing something, but Rush Tubbs there is moving on to some other greener pastures. Now, listen, one of the things that we have been trying to talk about the last couple days, usually in the 6, but, unscripted, really formless, chaotic is that 6 o'clock hour up until the stuff that Billy takes care of. We have left out the fact that yesterday was a big day for people who like sugar and seeing their dentist, and that's called Halloween. Billy, the first thing we were going to talk about was the shocking cost of candy.
It is ridiculous. It's so expensive.
Buddy, I went to Sam's Club in advance of Halloween thinking, we're going to be that house, right? This year, we're going to be the house that gives out the big candy bars. Like in the past, I would buy the little fun bunch stuff, and years I've done that. But you know where when kids leave the house and they run to mom and dad, they don't go, hey, I got the thumb size Snickers. They don't ever say that. They're like, full candy bar, full Hershey's, full three Musketeers.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, this is the year, going to do it. Let's go to Sam's. I'm sure they have a great. Holy crap, man!
Yeah.
Like the box of the candy bars, and this wasn't a box as big as my leg. This was half the size of my forearm in terms of length at best. It was like
ridiculous.
$20+. I'm like, what?
Yeah. It has to do with sugar prices and chocolate shortages and prices. And if you had paid a lot more money this year than you felt like you did last year for Halloween candy, you're absolutely right. You did. Prices were up 13% this year. And that's in addition to prices in 2022 being up 14%. So that means between 2021 and 2023, you are now paying 27% more for your Halloween candy.
Why is there a sugar shortage, and somehow can this be blamed on Putin and Hamas?
It has to be. The thing that gets me is that's just in 2 years. It's gone up 27%, and that is more than any other item or category of item inside of the grocery store. Nothing else has risen this fast, this quickly, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So in
this time in our country's history, that's spooky, because if you look back during like the Depression and stuff like that, it was candy that I think kept us from rioting and tearing down the government or something. You know what I mean? It was candy that provided that little bit of a relief from the tragedy that was life back during the Depression.
Fact, one of the things,
we're not going to have that now?
And one of the things they did during both World War II and then the Vietnam War was making sure that they could get candy to the soldiers fighting on the front line, because it was, something that was a memory of home, and it helped spirits. You've oftentimes regaled us with how when you were serving in Iraq, how the ice cream machine was broken, how the morale on the base would go down. Same thing. They were trying to get over the base. They would try to get candy in the hands of the servicemen serving on the front lines during World War II, and then during both Korea and Vietnam. It was a huge thing.
One of the significant upgrades to MREs, meals ready to eat, is they started throwing in Skittles and little M&M packets. And it was like, oh my God, just the color, by the way, to not have an olive green wrapped piece of food. Was like, oh, it's like being back in the world.
Exactly. And that's part of what they did. But there is a shortage of sugar and chocolate right now. Cocoa prices are now trading at a 44-year high. Part of that having to do with too much rain in West Africa, and that killed the cocoa plants. They got too wet. They couldn't. So that's part of the reason. So it was not
sugar cane in Hawaii. Isn't that our thing? Did someone burn all that down?
But we need the cocoa, though. That's the problem. And
gotta have the cocoa.
Yeah,
Good point.
The Ivory Coast produces right around 40% of the world's cocoa, and it got washed out. So we were having a problem with that, and that's why you're paying more. So what was your solution when you were there at?
No, I bought it because I'm like, listen, man. I have gotten to the point. And this is reckless to be here, given my advanced age and the finances being what they are for everybody. But at this point, I'm like, I could scrimp and save a couple bucks, but man, I don't know how much tread I have left on these tires. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go for the experience. Same thing we did in the United Kingdom, where I
Yeah.
probably spent more than I needed to or should have, but just because I'm like, you know what? It's the YOLO thing, right?
Yeah,
You only
yeah.
live once, and I'm trying not to go all Generation Triple Z or wherever we're at right now. But I thought, nope, let's do it. And anyway,
Okay,
what
so
did you do?
No, what was your price? No, it's your price. Just I want to see though. What was your price point? You walked out of Costco. You bought how much, and what was the price?
2 of the boxes of the big candy bars, and I'm trying to picture in my head how many candy bars were in each box, and I can't. But 2 boxes of the big candy bars, and I got some that were the Kit Kats and some that were the Snickers, the variety thing, but all big full size ones.
Yeah.
I think it totaled out for just those 2 boxes, it was $45 or something like that at Sam's, which is craziness.
Yeah, that
because
is crazy.
At Sam's, you figure it's a couple nickels. You know?
That is crazy. Now, I like that because you're at 45. I was at about $43 is what I spent. And okay, there's a little bit of a backstory. In my house, I have taken to going out and buying the Halloween candy a few days before we need it, and then I hide it. Because
for years.
Well, no, the issue is that not my first day living in the house with the rest of these peoples. I have met them before. and on certain Halloweens, I have come to the time in which we are going to get out the bags of the Halloween candy, and said bags are empty.
Yeah.
And not just and sometimes not just a single bag, multiple bags. So the issue is that if the rest of my family knows that there is Halloween candy in the house, it means there is no Halloween candy in the house.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't live with kids. I live with the plague of locusts. And it's just things just and they're gone.
That's a great description.
And that's the problem. So I hid them, and that led to a really awkward conversation over the weekend. Where I had them
because you hid them in the clothes dryer.
Well, I hid them downstairs, sort of next to the washer and dryer. And my wife at the time, this is really weird. In the conversation, she was teasing me about, we're gonna have to go, cheap and and we're gonna have to, maybe we get only Jolly Ranchers. I'm like, no, chocolate, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So I was, I knew what I had downstairs already. I knew that this was taken care of. So I was being a pain in the ass. And then she's like, no, imagine that. It's so out of character for me.
Did you get rid of all of it?
No, we got I'd say about a third of it left.
Isn't that always the way? Have you ever run out of candy?
Yes.
Okay, I've never run out of candy.
In fact, so what I did is, and so my wife was teasing me, and then I brought up the secret candy. Now what I did is I spent right around $43. Now the issue though is I spent at least 10 minutes in the candy aisle at one of our major grocery stores.
Yeah.
And my technique was you'd see the prices. So you walk the entire aisle. And what that does, that allows you to get a feel for what's the size of the bag, what are the different price points, and what looks like is a decent sale item. Then at that point, you start doing some math. You pick out your phone and you start doing some things with how much am I paying versus the ounces that are inside of the bag, because they'll tell you so many pieces of candy, but it's ounces.
Don't do any of that.
No, I spent over 10 minutes in the aisle. And so
Buddy, that's 10 minutes you can't ever get back.
But look at this, though. For $43, I was able to get, there was one bag that had 155 miniatures, little Hershey miniature things, and that was 46.17 ounces. I got a 90-piece assortment that are like Reese's, Hershey's, Almond Joys, 33.3 ounces. I got a bag of Sour Patch Kids Mummy Mix, which are little bags and then little Twizzlers.
Yeah, sure.
35 ounces. And then I got the Reese's snack size, 19.5 ounces. And that is the reserve parachute. That's just in case we're running out of things. And also, it's the Reese's Cups because that's the wife's favorite candy.
Oh, so if you have leftovers, you're
the
a
rest
winner.
Exactly. See how I plan this out?
That's smart.
Because I know that if I have done something stupid in the last 24 hours, there's also the make good.
How much do you have left over?
About a third of it. But I paid $43, and we had 133.97 ounces of candy, which works out to 32 cents an ounce. Boom!
It's like
I win.
It's like
I won the game of candy.
It's like a beautiful mind of candy over here, where he's like, he's got all the.
I was not paying more than 41 cents an ounce for candy. There's no way. And
that's its own win.
Yes, I won.
And the kids never knew.
No idea.
No idea. So I won. I remember in years past doing the big bowl thing, and early on when the kids come, you worry about rationing. So you're like, "Hey, kids, one piece, one piece," and then by the end of the night, usually when the teens start showing up and they've thrown a dirty sheet over them and said, "Boo, I'm a ghost."
Yep.
Now it's just like, just dump it in your bag, buddy. Get rid of this stuff. Get out of here. Don't let me have it because I'll eat it. you talk about the locust thing, having those big bars. I noticed that there were some missing, and I didn't go hunt for them, but I thought, gotta be Jeff.
Oh yeah,
gotta be Jeff.
yeah.
Who I forgot to call him this morning, Billy.
Uh-oh.
Dang it, on the way to school. Gotta be Jeff. I go into his room to grab something. He's got some boxes of some things he'd been doing, and I go and I'm grabbing the box, and I'm like, I better just look inside the box.
Yeah,
wrappers. Okay, I'm like, oh,
There we
you
go.
sly
You're
one,
it.
you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That
was good.
In terms of the trick-or-treating experience, it was a winner last night.
Oh, it was so good. And it's the nice part is that we are in a neighborhood where it is incredibly kid heavy. And one of the reasons we were excited to move into the neighborhood, because it is easier on the blocks around us to point out the houses that don't have kids than the ones that do, because the vast majority of houses do have kids. Also because we are within easy walking distance to the local elementary school. So it is very family friendly in the neighborhood. And it's also within bike riding distance of the middle school and bike riding distance to the recreation center. So the neighborhood is incredibly family friendly, and we've gotten the next generation, because our kids have kind of aged out and they're in the teenage years.
That's where
so we
we're
got
at.
Teenagers, but now we've got the next generation of the young ones. And it was
Oh, good for you,
hilarious.
man.
My favorite one last night was we had little kid came up and got the trick-or-treating, and there was another family behind them. And this kid had to be maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And in the costume and coming up the stairs and getting the walkway and stuff. And the mom yells out, just takes him some time, little tiny legs. And I'm like, no, I get it. It's okay. And so you just kind of wait and kind of gets up there.
And then you slam the door on him when he gets up there.
And then you get the tweet. Yeah. All that. And I did.
That's so cute.
And I did appreciate my wife at one time where we got the teenagers showing up and they knock. And she opens the door and they're like, hi. She goes, hi. And she stands there. And they're like, she goes, so we're not saying trick or treat anymore? And they laugh,
just
like,
waiting.
Sorry, trick or treat. Okay, now you can have the candy.
The ones, the teens in the past, I remember, the ones that have at least put forth some effort, I appreciate it. But some of them just show up and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, get some from your buddies, but you've walked up to the door.
Yeah.
You've basically just rolled out of bed and walked up. You're not good enough.
There's one where I've often thought that what I'd want to do is get a separate bowl and just have it filled of M&Ms. And for the people that walk up with no effort in the costume, they get an M. Just one.
Or reach their grubby little hand in where others have been and be like, there you go, grab some loose M&Ms. Good luck.
Or do this, or have like one piece of candy in your hand and go to drop it in the bag, but then reach in deep and come out with a handful of their candy. And go, seems like a trade. See what they do.
Yeah, great effort, man.
Yeah.
That overall magical then. I miss it when I would take the kids out, because I would usually be the one that walked them around, and it's just tough. Graham and I watched some horrible World Series. Apparently, some of the lowest rated watched World Series games in the history of the World Series, but also a blowout. Even though the Diamondbacks put a little bit of a comeback, had to sit down and crank out I just didn't get the same Halloween experience I used to in the past.
I loved walking around with the kids because it's the idea of that magic time, and as a parent, you get to relive a little bit of what it was like for you. You love those memories, and to see them, it's like the Jerry Seinfeld bit where it's like he talks about the idea the first time you tell kids that Halloween is a thing, and they're like, wait, who's doing what? You mean people are giving out candy? Wait, for free? No. Okay, no. Who's doing this? Everybody? Everybody's and all I have to do is dress up in a costume. Wait, repeat this to me. Yeah,
Billy, did you notice that somebody texted in and asked, is there a new protocol being taught? Got way more happy Halloween than trick or treat last night.
Huh. Not that I'm aware of.
I don't know how you don't do the
haven't heard that. Yeah, I know. It's kind of like the greeting.
Frankly, I wish we had the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown available too, because that is its own special reward.
Yes, it is.
Like especially the diatribe at the end where Sally dismembers Linus verbally after she realizes
it's crap.
Just Snoopy. You know what I mean? Spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen that 1960s era cartoon.
It's so good.
Still relevant today.
Yeah.
But
so we did the Treehouse of Horrors last night. We just put that on.
Good one.
We started up at the beginning and just ran that as a repeat. So that was what was on the entire time. Although my wife did get to hand out more of the candy, which I get a little sad about. But my job is to corral the dog. Everything that knocks on the front door. That could be its
own Halloween memory.
Oh, yeah.
When the dog attacks the kids.
Oh, yeah. And I got to make sure she doesn't do that. And the nice part is it only takes Oh, I would say about 90 minutes and maybe upwards of 50 people knocking on the door before she figures out what the hell's going on. And then like the last hour, she's like, well, okay, I'm tired of barking. I might as well just, but she still wants to know, like, she still gets to that point where the kids knock on the door and you open the door and she still wants to let them know. So she sits there and goes, rough.
And then back to laying on Billy's
she's like, I'm
head.
gonna lay down. Yeah. Now she's like, I'm gonna lay down now. Yeah, but that's what we got. So
well, another Halloween in the books, and they're just not the same. I'm gonna have to wait until I've got grandkids. And for any of my kids that are listening to this in a podcast, not that they will, I don't want that for many, many years. No. Please do not have grandkids for me in a long, long time. Daddy is very comfortable not being granddaddy here. Meanwhile, both my younger sister and younger brother are both grandparents.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's just the funniest thing. I love that fact.
If you don't, every time that you call your younger brother, if you don't refer to him as Gramps every time you're on the phone, every time.
Done.
Yeah.
Newly adopted.
Every time you call him, it should be the first thing. Hey, Gramps, what's up?
Gramps, what's up, Gramps? And my sister, who is 11 years younger than I am, is a grandmother.
Wow.
Boom.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's more Tess. You can't really tease the sister thing.
But Eric has been sadly my comedic punching bag for so many years.
Exactly. He's used to it.
He at some point is going to write a book. He'll probably get together with Amanda and they'll pen a book, The Monster, and it'll be all about brother/dad. Like, here's the evil that was George,
That's great.
And
it's going to be like the Wimpy Kid Diaries.
And we'll interview them on this show. There'll be some of the authors that'll come on because we've reached out to a few and it's like, we're not interested in selling books or something.
I have no idea what's happened in that industry. People are all of a sudden like, well, I'm not. I have a feeling it has to do some with just staffing, but still, it's trying to schedule some of these authors.
Staffing infections.
If they're not in a press tour mode, it's impossible anymore.
Listen, here's something that's all treat, no trick. Yeah. You love the segues. All treat, no trick. Brent and Joyce Tolliver have this company called Roll 'em Out Shelves, and it's like, in some ways, it's like the genius of a Chipotle. They have a very limited, very specific, targeted thing that they do, but they do it better than everybody else out there. And for them, it's the Roll 'em Out Shelves. Invite them into your house. Okay. Have them take a look at your kitchen, your bathroom, any place that has a cabinetry and something beneath the counter space. And you will be shocked at the ideas that they come up with, that as you sit there and listen to them, you will think, my God, this is going to actually make my house better. It's going to make the quality of life better. It's going to make the kitchen more efficient, the bathroom more efficient. And so you have them over, and here's the killer thing about this. Ask them to come over, schedule that in-home estimate today, and you will receive your first 4 rollouts installed at no charge. That's like an $80 value right there. You'll get to see it firsthand. And these folks, if you go to their website too, all 5-star ratings. I don't even know how that's possible. I don't know how I don't know how every single person that rates them is like, I'm in love with Brent and Joyce Tolliver, but you should join that list. 100% satisfied customers. You can check them out at their website, rollemoutshelves.com. And M, of course, is EM, rollemoutshelves.com. Or you can give them a call at 303-475-9601, 303-475-9601. 9601. Listen, we're going to cut away for a break. When we come back, we'll change it up. It won't be candy all morning, but we've been trying to have this conversation in the 6 o'clock hour the last 2 days, and we've just flubbed it. And there, we just did it. Stuck the landing. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly to clear the clutter. Contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. I had mentioned that I have been an adjunct professor at the fabulous University of Denver College of Law, DU-Col, for over 20 years now. I mean, coming up on 21, 22 years. It's an honor to do it, especially since it's my mom's alma mater for purposes of her law degree. A lot of great kids have come through there that have gone on to be big-time attorneys. I'll give you just a few names. One, I have, and I've also taught previously back in the 2000s. I was an adjunct professor at the University of Colorado Boulder School of Law, where I graduated from, but it's just too far away to drive all the time. So I had to give that up after a few years. But along the way, I've had the opportunity to teach folks like Brian Mason, the elected district attorney for the 17th Judicial District, one half of the Quisar Mohammadi, and I'm certain, Mohammadi's partner, Rathod. It's Mohammadi, Rathod, Mohammadi, whatever name has the Rathod in it. I had him as a student up at CU Boulder and a student in a trial advocacy class in the past, Linda Stanley, who is now the elected district attorney for the 11th Judicial District. You know her, if at all, from the fact that she's the DA whose office is prosecuting, or was prosecuting Barry Morphew for the, at the time, alleged murder of his wife. Now, you may remember, we've had conversations about this going way back when, a lot of controversy surrounding that prosecution for the way it was handled, how it was initiated, the timing, the pace, the procedural things that didn't get done. And ultimately, that case gets dismissed before it goes to trial. And in the ensuing time between that and now, they've actually found Suzanne Morphew's body. That's a big deal. Doesn't mean they're closer to being able to prosecute Barry or anybody else for that matter. And, you know, I'd advocated on a couple different outlets, including Dan Abrams' show, that if I'm the DA, man, I slow my roll. Get a grand jury ginned up, which Chaffee County doesn't have organically the way like a metro area DA's office does, but get one ginned up and slow roll this thing. You know, dot your I's, cross your T's. If you're going to pull the trigger on this thing again, man, make sure you've got the person. The last one, just if you paid attention at all, not super professional, in my opinion. And the outcome was just a blemish on that office and the pursuit of justice on that particular case. Nonetheless, all of those things that took place in the earlier version of that case that resulted in the dismissal have now shown up in a complaint filed, I believe it was, I'm looking at it right here, 2 days ago. It was filed October the 30th, 2023. It is captioned complaint. It is the people of the state of Colorado. The respondent, not defendant, the respondent is Linda Stanley. Now, the people that claim to be the people of the state of Colorado, they're not like district attorneys. They're not elected. They're not accountable in any way, shape, or form to the public. They're the regulatory council that work for attorney regulation. And so what they've done is filed this with a presiding disciplinary judge who oversees allegations of misconduct by attorneys. There's a hearing that ultimately gets held. Linda Stanley will have the opportunity to have an attorney defend her. And the hearing, I'm not sure if it's going to be public. I hope it is, because I think these are matters of public importance. But at the end of the day, the disciplinary judge can make the decision to say, I don't find that these things were proven, or I find that they were, and here's the discipline that I impose. That discipline could be, you have to take some ethics classes, or you have to take classes about discovery, or you were suspended from the practice of law, or you have to take the MPRE, the multi-state professional responsibility exam, which, by the way, super painful, or you're disbarred. Disbarred is a big one. That is the death penalty for lawyers professionally. And the only way back is if you're provided the opportunity to reapply, retake the bar. I mean, it's bad. It's like losing your medical license as a doctor. Hard to imagine you climbing back out of that hole. So this particular one, just cut to the chase in terms of what they're asking for. They're just asking for appropriate discipline. That leaves pretty wide discretion to the disciplinary judge. I get it. But this is a 20-page complaint. It is not all about the Morphew case, but it really is about 95% about the Morphew case. And there are certain claims that are made throughout this. The claims act like charges, like if you accuse someone of, motor vehicle theft or first-degree murder or even DUI. And so what I wanted to do was to go through this. I had done a little bit of legal analysis for KDVR last night on this issue as well, another Halloween special there. And I'd gone through some of this. It's interesting to me because given the allegations in the complaint, and remember, they're just allegations, and nobody drafts a complaint to make their case sound weak. They make it sound as strong as they can. That's just how it goes. They put in all the good facts. This to me struck me as something where I could never see myself being in this situation because I would not have made the decisions that DA Stanley made. And I say that respectfully because there isn't just one way to do this job, but I would not have made really any of these decisions. That's not true. There's a couple decisions I might have made, but most of them I would not have made. That does not in and of itself mean there's a violation of these ethical rules. And that's what the disciplinary judge is going to have to determine. Not did she break the law, did she violate her obligation to uphold these ethical rules. We call them Colorado Rules of Professional Conduct. So I wanted to go through some of these things in here to talk to you about this. You're going to know stuff that just nobody else knows. When this thing gets reported in these 30-second, 60-second stories, you don't really get a flavor for what it is. All they do is do the salacious stuff. Like if you look at the Denver Post website, shocker that it would go with the headline grabbing, authorities accuse DA Stanley of authorities? Yeah, I guess. Not like law enforcement, not like the AG's office, which is barely law enforcement, or the DA's office or the U.S. attorney, not like that kind of authorities, like some regulatory counsel, some employees of the Office of Attorney Regulation. That's who did it. And it's not to diminish their authority. It's to say that's not what you think of when you think of authorities. So it's headline grabbing stuff. But we're going to drill down a little bit deeper than this so that you understand how the system is supposed to work, what happened here, and whether or not I think it runs afoul of these ethical rules. So in this particular case, they make a series of charges. They're called claims. Claim one is that Linda Stanley violated her obligation to act with reasonable diligence and promptness. All of this accusation is related to the fact that it was a gong show regarding the Morphew case with mandatory disclosures that have to be given to the defense on things including reports, expert opinions, expert curriculum vitae, which are just big fancy words for a resume. Those things have a certain deadline on them baked into the rules of professional conduct and not in the rules of professional conduct, based on the rules of criminal procedure. And those didn't happen. Those didn't happen just once. Those didn't happen repeatedly, over and over and over again, to the point where judges involved in the case, and not just one, imposed sanctions. That's penalties on the DA's office for failing to do this. And it went on for months, and it seemed to be largely unabated by even changes in staff. So this violation says, Linda Stanley, you screwed up all of the due diligence, the reasonable diligence and promptness in following the rules and upholding all of these things you were supposed to do. That right there, folks, is a critical piece of due process. So let's just back up a little bit. When the government points its bony finger at you or anybody else out there and accuses you of a crime, they're on the hook for giving you every piece of evidence they intend to use against you, but all the other evidence out there that might also be exculpatory. That means tend to mitigate either what you are accused of doing or show that you didn't do it. And so here, one of the allegations was that the DA's office received a report on DNA, that there was some sort of mystery DNA found in Suzanne Morphew's car on the steering wheel that actually tied back to an unknown sexual assaulter from, I think it was Arizona, it could have been New Mexico, that part of the country, and some other things, weird DNA stuff. Well, if you're the person accused of killing your wife, that feels to you like evidence you might want to present to a jury. Like, hey, there's DNA in her car. It doesn't belong to me, right? Like, that's kind of a big deal. That's called potentially exculpatory evidence. When you get that as a DA, that thing goes from you to the defense attorney in the blink of an eye. Here, they hung on to it for months. That's not just an unforced error. That's like you're on offense and you're running the ball down the field and you just throw it to the other side. You just pitch it to them. Like, it's inexplicable, right? Maybe there's some chaos going on down there because it's a smaller office and they lack, I don't know, the internal structure or resources to deal with a case of this size. That's very, very possible. And in this case, I think it's likely given what Linda Stanley did in terms of the staffing. And we'll talk about this in a moment. So that's that one accusation. Let me tell you my concern with that accusation. I don't think Linda Stanley was the lead prosecutor on this case. In fact, this 20-page complaint doesn't suggest that at all. It doesn't even suggest she was responsible for the day-to-day handling of this specific case. That's a big deal. When you're the DA in most jurisdictions, you oversee other prosecutors. That gets us to one of the other claims. And one of the other claims directly related to this was that she failed to adequately supervise the people that were in charge of this case. It says, here it is, claim number 4, responsibilities of a supervisory lawyer. And it cites this rule of professional conduct, 5.1, and it says a partner in a law firm, and in essence, the DA is kind of like the managing partner. A lawyer, individually or together with other lawyers, possesses comparable managerial authority, shall make, and here's the key language, reasonable efforts to ensure that the firm has in effect measures, blah, 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 to comply with all these things. And then it says, and she didn't. There are no factual allegations in here to suggest that she did not have these things in place or did not make reasonable efforts. It really just says the prosecution team failed to do these things, and therefore it's imputed as a failure of supervision. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, tell me how she failed. Let me give you an example of how I think she defeats that charge and why it's not appropriate here. Linda Stanley has no business handling a murder case. I don't care if she's the elected DA or not, much like Beth McCann has no business handling a murder case. They just don't have the chops to do it, don't have the experience. It would be like a brand new medical student who specialized in podiatry performing brain surgery. You know, like you'd say, oh, I get you're a doctor. That's not your thing. So in this particular case, to her credit, she recognizes that. One of the people that initially handles this case is a guy named Jeff Lindsay, super experienced 25-year plus prosecutor out of El Paso County. Dude knows what he's doing. He's the initial guy handling this case. Along the way, during all of this stuff, she hires a guy that used to be my assistant district attorney. His name's Mark Hurlbert. He had been the elected district attorney 2 terms up in the 5th Judicial District where they oversaw the Kobe Bryant case. She brings him on to lead the prosecution. Now, that's a guy with 30 years of experience. So this wasn't someone who just like hired a couple kids off the street and said, good luck, do what you need to do. She's hiring people who have the chops, know-how, and experience, presumably, to handle a high-profile case like this and meet their discovery obligations. What additional protocols would you need to put in on people who outrank you in terms of experience by decades? By decades. What is it you go and tell them as the elected DA? I want you to report back to me on a daily basis how you're complying with the rule. That's silly. You wouldn't do that. That's why you hire people that you can cut loose to handle these cases. Along the way, she hired another super senior guy with 47 years of criminal law experience, both as a defense attorney, as a prosecutor. This guy helped us out on the Aurora Theater case. I think the world of this guy. This is a guy I would turn to for legal advice on things like jury selection, the law surrounding it, appellate stuff. She hired that guy to help out with the case. And then she hired another guy who was a former chief deputy out of Jefferson County, also a 30-year plus prosecutor. He'd been a chief deputy up in the 9th Judicial District before that. These are dudes who know what they're doing. They've been in this rodeo many times before, handling big, big cases. So for attorney regulation to come back and say, Linda Stanley, you failed to supervise these people, what are you talking about? This would be like if I had a flag football team and I brought Peyton Manning on to be the quarterback and they lose games, people would be like, well, you didn't manage Peyton very well. I'm like, well, how do I manage Peyton Manning? What am I going to tell Peyton Manning? I need you to go through with me the plays you anticipate running in this play. That doesn't make any sense. So without pleading a single failure that Linda Stanley did, They just simply say, well, she must be guilty of failing to supervise because that prosecution team failed. I think it's also noteworthy that this complaint is only about Linda Stanley, not about any of those guys. And I'm not accusing them of wrongdoing. I'm saying what they're trying to say is the conduct was unethical and it's imputed to her because she's ultimately the elected DA. I don't think that's the standard under these rules. I sure hope it's not the standard, because as the guy that used to be the DA over 90 prosecutors, you're telling me that the mistakes that one make instantly, I'm on the hook because I'm the ultimate DA. Now, I got levels of supervision between me and them. Anyway, I don't think that's a strong claim. Some of the problematic ones for me are things related to pretrial publicity. And I've talked about this before, but I'm going to remind you, there are two rules that govern what attorneys can do in active cases in the court. One is a rule called 3.6. That applies to every attorney of any kind. If you're in active litigation on a case, what you can't do, and it's highlighted in here, is you can't make statements that will be disseminated by means of public communication that will, and this again is the key language, a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in that matter. Big bad words that are basically like, listen, if what you're going to say is going to poison the well in a jury trial, because let's be honest, how are you going to materially prejudice a judge in the public comments you make? You're not gonna, right? Judges are trained to not buy off on whatever garbage a DA or a defense attorney says in the media. So this is clearly about prejudicing a jury trial. And in the Barry Morphew case that existed at the time, this case was always going to be headed towards a jury trial. Guys say, I didn't kill my wife. They say he did. How do you plea bargain that? Would you be willing to go to prison for 30 years for not killing your wife? I mean, it's going to go to trial. So the issue here is, does Linda Stanley make comments that have a substantial, that's a big word, likelihood of materially prejudicing that jury trial, which means poisoning the well for future jurors? So the allegations in this particular claim are that she goes on this YouTube channel called Profiling Evil to talk with some dude named King. I don't know this channel. I don't know this guy. She also was communicating with someone named Jules, I think Julez, who had her own, it's called True Crime with Jules. I don't know if that's a YouTube show, an internet thing, but here's the point. She should not have been commenting with them about the case. It's imprudent to do that. I would have never, ever done that. It's just an unforced error. However, I don't think that talking to a YouTuber and some other person on Facebook provides a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing a jury in teeny tiny Chaffee County. There are no allegations that X percentage of this guy's viewers are in Chaffee County or that Chaffee County consumed this guy's product. There's no allegations that this Jules, True Crime with Jules, or whatever the hell it's called, that she has anybody in Chaffee County that follows what she does. So should she have been talking to the media about this case beyond procedural things? No. But that's not a suggestion that she violated her ethical obligations. And there's no evidence in here, in my opinion, that there was a substantial likelihood that those statements to those, whatever they are, materially prejudice a future jury pool. I don't see it. At one point, one of the judges is handed by the defense, I presume, an affidavit from a single individual in Salida that says, well, based on public comments that Judge Murphy, that was one of the judges in the case, and DA Linda Stanley made, I believe that Barry Morphew killed his wife. How about this? She accused him of killing his wife. What additional statements is the prosecutor going to make that's going to drive a different conclusion? She's already publicly accused him of murder, whether she should have or not, different kind of a thing. That's not a surprise. It's got to be something more than that. I just don't see it here. I think she should have never made those comments, but I don't think they run afoul of that 3.6. Here's another. Oh, wait a minute. We're running up on time here. I'm just dribbling on, and I'm sure Billy's like, sweet mother of God, make it stop. We're running up on a break. Let's do this. I have no idea whether this kind of an insider analysis matters to you, but I am fascinated by these things simply from having been in a similar position and having done things completely differently. But differently doesn't mean that it's a violation of the ethical rules. And I just think it's interesting. They're trying to impact her ability to practice law based over this. We'll finish that stuff up. And then in the 8 o'clock hour, we'll get some other cool stuff to talk about. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. I'm going to wrap up this topic by finishing with sort of the cherry on top of this. The most concerning thing, the most disturbing thing that took place was one of the judges, not Judge Murphy, who made some adverse rulings to the DA's office. Subsequent to those rulings, DA Stanley asked her prosecutors to ask local law enforcement to go interview the judge's ex-wife to determine if there had been any acts of domestic violence, because she was rationalizing in her mind that the adverse rulings may be because of some sort of kinship, perhaps the judge felt towards either Barry Morphew or against the victims, but she couldn't understand why the rulings were so adverse. So her prosecutor did reach out to local law enforcement, and they said, we're not going to do that. We don't have any grounds to go ask those questions. We're not doing it. So she ordered her own chief investigator to go interview the ex-wife with the idea that if they got the information they needed, it might form the basis of a motion to recuse that judge. I've never, ever heard of anything like that. That is, and they put this in the complaint, if that's not an abuse of discretion, it's because there are some facts out there that I don't know about that Linda could help explain, and probably will have to, because that right there is pretty shocking. Of course, the chief investigator goes and interviews the judge's ex-wife and finds out nothing ever, never, nothing like that. But damn, that's a big one. Hey, listen, that brings us to the end of this this section. I could talk about this stuff all day only because I'm fascinated by it. Oh yeah, people might want to know, throughout the entire Aurora Theater case, not a single sustained discovery violation alleged against us, and that includes 2,700 pieces of evidence and 306 witnesses. That's how you do that. Hey, when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about a guy named Myorkas, another guy named Hawley. My name's George. It's my show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here halfway through the Wednesday show, which is halfway through the week. It's also the very first day of November. This is the month that will contain both Thanksgiving, one of my faves, and a very American holiday, and of course, Black Friday right afterwards. In the old days, it also used to be that period of time where we'd get the big CU Nebraska game. Unfortunately for Nebraska, they were already dispatched some weeks ago. Listen, yesterday there was a bit of tension, conflict, a confrontation, if you will, at a Senate hearing that involved the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. You know him better as Myorkas. He's someone that my guess is many of the people listening here don't cheer for. And a guy named Senator Josh Hawley. I think Josh was the former Attorney General for the state of Missouri. I think that's true. I did not confirm that in the time in between. They had a confrontation yesterday over an issue of an employee of DHS who had a certain social media post. That social media post was viewed as anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic. And Josh Hawley had some questions and Myorkas had some answers. We've got a long clip here, Billy. So sorry. That's the exchange between a very animated Josh Hawley, an upset but still somewhat measured Myorkas, who is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. It was interesting, the conversation that went back and forth. It felt performative a bit for Senator Hawley, in my opinion. I wanted to hear some of the answers Myorkas was going to give, even if those answers ultimately were going to be the dodges that he either had to give or wanted to give. I wanted to hear those answers, and it turned into a bit of this yelling match here. But I think the point that Senator Hawley brings up that is worth discussing is there's that one. And then is there the visa question, Billy? Do we have that one too? There's another exchange that took place. I want to talk about these two things with you about, is Senator Hawley right in these things, and have that conversation. Billy? That also an exchange from Hawley and Myorkas. I think those two questions are important for us to discuss. We're talking about now about the federal government exercising federal government authority that we loan to them. And they're both executive branch things. So we loan it to them through the president of the United States and all of those other secretary positions. So there's two questions on the table here. And I want to get your thoughts on this at 303-696-1971. First is the employee. Josh Hawley suggests to Secretary Myorkas that the employee who said those poisonous, toxic, anti-Jewish, anti-Israeli things should lose her job as a result of posting those things. And it's interesting because, my gut reaction is, why in the world do we have somebody like that being funded by taxpayer dollars? And the other reaction I have, though, is, whoa, wait. Could we keep from hiring people for those things? We talked a little bit about that with these college students. Can we now use the things that people say on social media, if you work for the federal government, that aren't anti-America in terms of they're not anti-United States government? I think the United States government should burn and you guys are the great Satan and all that. That to me is very, very different. If you come out and say a bunch of anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli things, despite the fact that they're some of our closest allies on the planet, and oh, by the way, there's a significant number of Jews here in the United States. What do we do with that person? Should they be fired for that? Do we terminate that person for those poisonous, toxic, anti-Semitic, in some ways encouraging violent statements on social media? I don't know. I want them fired because I don't want people thinking like that in the government. And then I ask myself, wait. If this is my law firm or my own private business, I do it all day long. I can do that all day long because I ain't the government. Well, now this is the federal government. Is this a First Amendment issue? Do you think this is a First Amendment issue that a person on the taxpayer dime who voices this kind of vitriol, this kind of hatred towards a country who's a close ally and people, Jewish, many of whom are American Jews here, is that the kind of thing that should cause you to get fired? And if so, why? Why should you be fired for that? It's horrible. If I were a private employer, I would SCAN that person instantly for something like that. And that wouldn't be a violation of their First Amendment rights because remember, I ain't the man. I'm not the government. The other question to me is also important, and maybe it's the dominating one for purposes of the conversation that we're going to have here. And that is, should somebody that's here on a visa be kicked out of the country if they show support for a terrorist organization? Because Hamas, Palestine, all that, it's a terrorist organization. If you show support for a terrorist organization of any kind, should you be shown the door in America? Should you lose your visa? Your visa is just like, we're giving you permission to be here. You're not a citizen. And you have to feel differently about this. We can't deport American citizens who say horrible things. We don't deport American citizens who burn the American flag, as much as that infuriates me. We don't do that because you have certain rights. As a visa holder, you don't tend to have the same rights. So the question is, if we're going to give someone permission to use a visa, and there's only a limited number of them, they're not unlimited. In fact, that's part of the great weakness in our immigration system right now. We have so many limited visas. Do we kick you out for the things you say? And what do those things have to be? Now, if it's death to America, get out. Get out yesterday. If it's the American government should be overthrown, the American government is the great Satan, people should take up arms and kill Americans, yes, bye, get out. But if it's, I hate Israel, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, anti-Semitic comments, are those the kind of things that should get you kicked out of the country if you're not a citizen? Tell me about that. 303-696-1971. I love the idea of finding some sort of intellectual purity here with some of these visa holders before they come in the front door, and making sure that we're not inviting people here. Like if somebody had said that and then applied to be in the United States, wouldn't we all say, no, you can't come here? We take pride in our religious tolerance and our diversity of thought. And if your position out there is death to Jews, death to Israel, we're not going to invite you in. Well, let's say you're already here. Now what? Here's one of our texts. I really can't stand people who are questioned by our senators that they just give some BS statement that never answers the question. And this is just an example, not close. This is our friend Alexa. Question, are border agents making sandwiches? Are border agents making sandwiches or illegal immigrants instead of securing the border? Answer, our agencies do a multitude of tasks around the security of our border. I agree. That's awful. And they should continue to be pummeled with leading questions until they give the answer. I agree with that. This one's a little bit different. Hawley says, hey, should these people be kicked out of the country on visas because they say these horribly poisonous anti-Semitic things? And I do think the answer is it's a matter of legal authority. Now, Myorkas is such a boring human chalk-like guy in terms of his answers, except when he was getting animated to call Hawley despicable. He just drolls through this. But his answer, if I'm the secretary, is the right one. It's just he should have the answer before he shows up there. He says, hey, this is a matter of legal interpretation. We're on it. We're getting our best attorneys to look at this and give us an opinion. And Senator, when I have that answer, I'll either come back here to give you that answer under oath, or I will send you a letter over my signature that tells you the position of DHS. But they don't do that. They mealy-mouth the stuff. And they're like, well, it's a matter of legal interpretation, and I'm just not prepared to give you an answer. The question from Hawley shouldn't have been to demand an answer. It should have been, why aren't you prepared? What did you think you were doing coming here today? Are you surprised there are questions about Hamas-loving visa holders and what should be done with them? Are you shocked by that? And if so, what kind of judgment of that is that of yours? But that's not what we do. Instead, Hawley gets super emotional. He's playing for the cameras. I believe that. And then he changes the question to, it's a question, morally, do you think that they should be kicked out? Dude shouldn't answer that question. I don't want to hear what Myorkas's moral position is on anything. I want this guy to execute the laws and policies of the United States and answer questions about how and why they do it. But I don't want to hear his opinion on anything moral. And Hawley shouldn't be asking for it. In fact, it's irrelevant. What if Myorkas's opinion was, morally, I'm absolutely appalled that we allow, as a son or a family member of a Holocaust survivor, and he is, of Holocaust survivors, guy's Jewish. If he were to say, as a Jew, I am deeply offended that there are people out there that would say these things. I wish they weren't in the country. By the way, I think we lack the authority to kick them out. Then who cares about that answer? Isn't the only answer you care about, I lack the authority to do anything, or it would be a violation of the law for us to do that? That's the only thing that matters. And for Senator Hawley, that should be the only thing he cares about, because then the follow-on question is, what changes to the law does Congress need to make to empower you to get rid of these anti-Semites, if that's the direction that we're going to go? Instead, it turns into this, I don't know, this soapbox performance art garbage. In fact, while I'm introducing this topic, I see Josh Hawley up on the screen here on Fox News. And they're playing the clips of the Myorkas thing. And it's like, and he took on Myorkas. Yeah, okay, those were important questions to ask. I agree. But the talking over him, yelling him thing, what's that accomplishing in that setting? Asking that he answer what his moral beliefs are about this, what difference does it make? Here's some text. A side conversation in this, if a DHS employee had posted that statement toward Palestinians, it would have been blocked on pretty much every platform as hate speech. But you can say that about Israel and it's not blocked. That is so insightful, Texter. That is a hella lot insightful right there. You're right. That's another problem. That's aside from whatever the federal government does. This is a Twitter, Facebook kind of thing. You're right. If the same thing had been said about Palestinians, it would have been a social media hate crime and they would have been blocked. But when you say it about Jews in Israel, it's like, well, it's just discord. discourse. Here's another text. My God, George, GAWD. My God, George, they should be fired if they advocate violence, and students should be expelled. Visa holders who advocate violence should be on the next plane out of here. Gino, listen, if they're advocating violence inside the United States, I agree with you 1 billion%. But what if they're advocating a different violence? What if they say, I'm on the side of Russia and I hope Putin takes back all of Ukraine and I want Russia to wipe out Ukrainians? Do we expel those people? Gino, I don't think you'd feel that way. But if they say, hey, death to the Zionists and the Israelis over there, I want them wiped out. I don't think Israel should be a country. Is that the kind of thing that we kick them out for? I don't know. Call in and have the conversation. 303-696-1971. More text coming in here, and I'll get to those things. People somewhat aghast. Here's what you're never going to be aghast about, and that is calling up our friend Mitch Floria at the Art of Granite. Mitch is that craftsman meets entrepreneur who has figured out a way to take wholesale prices and give them to you as a way of encouraging you to sign up to beautify the interior of your home. It could be your bathroom. It could be the kitchen, could be the finished basement that you're working on. It doesn't matter. If it has a countertop, it needs the Art of Granite and Mitch Floria. Now, Mitch has been doing this for a long, long time at a high level of success. My guess is outside of this show, he gets as much business from word of mouth as anything else, because more people contact me off the radio, friends who I run into, some of whom I haven't seen in a while. They're like, oh, hey, well, by the way, you talk about Mitch Floria. He did our counters, or he did our neighbors' counters, and now we're going to use him. I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me since I've been doing this show. Why don't you join that? Here's the other thing, too. He rewards you for being a 710 listener, for being a George listener. You tell him those facts. He'll say, hey, in addition to the wholesale prices, I'll throw in the bathroom countertop for free with the kitchen countertop package. Or if you're only doing one room, I'll throw in the sink for free. I'm going to figure out a way to make it make sense for your bottom line. And once it's done, you're going to be so happy you did it. You check out the selection at theartofgranite.com, theartofgranite.com. I suggest going into the showroom. That's what I did. Blown away by the selection, blown away by how earnest, by the way, Mitch is. He's the guy that does business with you eye to eye, hand in hand, shakes your hand, and you know and trust that it's going to work out, and it does. You can call him on his cell phone, 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. That's the Art of Granite. Some more texts here and phone calls coming in. You join him at 303-696-1971. And Joan is talking about the trial up the road there. So they're going to try the J6 report and prove Trump insurrection. Yeah, I don't think that's proof. It says, George, you are so funny. This administration will never throw anyone out of the country. And you are on a soapbox rant that everyone agrees with Josh. Well, if everyone had the guts to call in and agree with Josh, I'd feel a little bit differently about it. But I'm not getting a bunch of texts saying, yay, Josh Hawley. Joan, it's you so far. Here's another one. George, these people have not been vetted. They have not gone through the process of legal immigration. Well, that's not true. If they have a visa, they have gone through the process of legal immigration. Now, I'm not talking about the refugees who are pouring over the border. I'm talking about other visa holders. That's different. Visa holders, I sure hope they've been vetted. They have gone through the legal process. But let's pretend for a moment that they get vetted and we don't know that they harbor any of these horrible views. And then when they get here, they say, surprise, I'm an anti-Semite. Do we then say, that's it, you're out? I mean, Gino's right. If they advocate for violence anywhere inside the United States, get out, gone. Advocating for the overthrow of a government of another country, not us, even if it's an ally, is that grounds to kick them out of the country? Is that what we want? Should we kick people out if they take the position in Ukraine or Russia that we disagree with? I don't think you'd advocate for that, right? If someone came out and said, Ukraine's got to defeat Russia, that's what I've said. That's enough for a visa holder to get kicked out? Or what if they say, no, I'm Putin on this one? Ukraine has historically, going back millennia, been part of the Russian Empire, and it should be again. And most of those Ukrainians are Russian-speaking cultural Russians anyway. Which, I mean, if you take that position, we say, whoa, we got to kick you out. I'm a fan of Israel. I'm a supporter of Israel. I'm a supporter of them wiping off the planet Earth, Hamas, every last one of them. They're terrorists. They cannot be negotiated with. But if someone says, no, Israelis are the terrorists and they should be wiped off the earth, is that, well, that's it then. You're gone. Can't be in America anymore. Another text, your example is not comparing apples and apples. On one hand, someone is advocating the simple defeat of Ukraine and not the elimination of all Ukrainians, as the person is, in this case, advocating the elimination of all Jews. Big difference. Okay, well, let me give you that apple then. Let's say someone says, not only do I hope Russia wins in the battle with Ukraine, I hope they wipe out all Ukrainians. Now what? Now we say, well, that position, we can't support that. And now you have to leave the country as a visa holder. Is that it? Is that what gets us there? Another text here. The 1A, the First Amendment binds the government from punishing content-based speech, irrespective of against whom, citizen or not. I agree. I want that to be applied to citizens for sure. But do we have a different standard, or should there be a different standard for visa holders who are here with our permission? And I want to be clear too, if you're a citizen of this country and you advocate for the overthrow of the government, I don't think you get expelled out of the country. If you're a visa holder and you advocate for the overthrow of the American government, I think we kick you out. We throw you on a raft with holes in it and send you adrift in the Atlantic. That's what we do. But not for citizens. So what do you think about that? Do you agree with the texture here? First Amendment says, don't care what the position is, you get the protection. 303-696-1971. Spencer, whoever's talking with Billy on the phone on the other line, we're going to get to you when we come back. We're going to cut away from a break. One line open. It can be you. 303-696-1971. Do you support Hawley or something else? George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler, 710 K. The music run out, Billy. I feel like I didn't put the headphones in time. It's Wednesday, folks. It's hump day. Anything can happen. Let's go right to the phone lines. Spencer, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think?
Hey, George. So let me preface this by saying I do not agree with Hamas. I do not agree with anything that they've done. I don't agree with people who sympathize with them. But problem around free speech is once you start cracking the dam or puncturing holes in it, you create a opening for people to exploit. Long before they start labeling MAGA Republicans as extremist terrorists.
Haven't they already? Hasn't like the Southern Poverty Law Center already done that?
That's my exact point. And then they start utilizing the same tools and tactics that they would use to get rid of or end the conversation that Hamas sympathizers are having, and they would start applying it to MAGA Republicans. It's you point at that Larry Flint case that as, listen, you protect all free speech, you risk losing all free speech. Now, there is a line that should not be crossed. I mean, I believe they call it terroristic threats. If you're driving down the road saying rape their wives and rape their daughters, I'm pretty sure that should be one of those things where we're like, hey, nope, not allowed. You know, right?
So in these two different things that we're talking about, one is there's that DHS employee who said those horrible, toxic, anti-Semitic things in social media. It sounds like, based on what Myorkas said, she has been suspended and they're looking at what to do and all this other stuff. Should she be terminated? If she's an American citizen, should she be terminated from that federal employment in that position for those things?
Well, I mean, what's is the term litmus test? What do we allow as free speech? What do we not allow as free speech?
Well, we can't. That's a great question, man. That's really part of the discussion here. It can't be limitless, right? Like at some point, if somebody were to say things like, I think that you should sodomize children or something like that, we'd be like, sweet mother of God. That's not a First Amendment thing. That's just a decency thing. But yes. I'm not saying these are the same comments, but where do you draw that line? How do you know where to say you can't say things like this in this capacity?
Well, I mean, it's the funny thing is politicians and bureaucrats tend to hold themselves to a different standard than they hold just the average American citizen.
God, that's so true.
But it's one of those things where, I mean, do we have to just say, well, this is a part of a bigger problem for the people that we've elected into these positions, who have picked these people below them that we didn't vote into these places. We just have to not vote these people back into office. But if you violate the law, if you cross a line, even a line that's imaginary, created by social standards, you lose your job. But I have a problem with that as well, because what happens when the shoe's on the other foot and somebody takes what we have considered as everyday normal, speech or normal idea and thought amongst people, and they slap an extremist viewpoint on it, or they say, nope, you're now a radical for saying that when 10 years ago you weren't. And then they apply those same tools and you lose your job, or they remove you from your position. I mean, that's the thing that everyone needs to be thinking about, is how can this be exploited? I can support this and watch it happen and see it come to fruition, but how can it be exploited against me in the future?
I agree, man. I'm worried about that. How about on this other question, though, and that is, should we be expelling visa holders for saying things?
Are they afforded the same protections under the Constitution?
Well, honestly, I don't want to sound like Myorkas here, but I presume that's the legal thing he's trying to figure out there. Because if it's you or me, the answer is no. You can say all sorts of horrible things and not be kicked out of the country, including the sodomizing the children thing, which is an extreme, horrible example, but you just can't be kicked out of your country for that. But if you're a visa holder, what is that line where if you express something, not about violence in America, but about violence against people that we're allied with, or even a faith that we have here, is that enough to be like, peace, dude?
Wasn't there a court case about illegal immigrants being afforded the protections of the Constitution? I'm
sure there's cases out there, man, and you've now hit the limits of my intellectual knowledge.
I could have swore. I'm not going to swear.
Go ahead and swear. We all do.
Gosh darn it, cheese and rice. So I promise you that a few years ago this came up, and I'm pretty sure that they said that illegal immigrants were afforded protections under the Constitution. And if that's the case, I mean, a visa holder has higher standing in my eyes than an illegal immigrant.
For sure. That makes sense.
So if they're protected, if illegal immigrants are protected, I don't understand why visa holders wouldn't be protected. But at the same time, it's like when you go for your citizenship, like, hey, we're going to look at the fact that your social media has you making terroristic threats or supporting terroristic organizations. I mean, we slammed the book against anyone that was an ISIS sympathizer, and I don't really see much difference between ISIS and Hamas. So I personally, no, it's like, listen, you come to this country, you need to get in line with, the rest of America and how we as a society, view more morality and humanity. And if you want to roll over here and try to bring, the crap that you were running away from out of the Middle East, then, have a nice day. Why don't you go on back home? I just think, why would anyone want to come here and try to bring the mess that they ran away from to this country? It blows my mind.
I don't get it either. I worry, and I think your earlier comment is the one that concerns me the most, and that is this our version of cancel culture? Is this something, Billy had brought this up during the break, is this something that, like you said, can then be turned and visited upon us? I mean, could you see someone being made to answer who works for the federal government who is making what are argued to be anti-trans comments, anti-LGBTQ comments, something like that? And then they're like, well, we can't have that person in the government. Have you fired them yet? I mean, if we go down this road, are we opening Pandora's box to that? Or is this just so unique and so different that we have to treat it differently?
Yes. Tell me one thing you've seen with our government that says that they wouldn't do that. You set a precedent and then they exploit it. And it's, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of examples I could point to, but I can't have any come to the top of my head right now. But I just know that the second you create an opportunity for somebody to legally do something that in the past would not be, considered okay by the majority of American citizens, they're going to do it, especially if it gets them more power or eliminates a political opponent who might be more popular than they are, or whatever the reason may be. That's the thing that we need to start remembering as citizens is when we open doors, it becomes usable by everybody. And that's the sad part of life. So.
Spencer, great call, man. Thank you for getting us started on this thing. Spencer's line is open at 303-696-1971. Tony's on the phone. We'll get to Tony. More and more texts pouring in here. Here's just one of them. I may not agree with what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And they're quoting Voltaire. Another one, not only does the First Amendment rights extend to visa holders, but so does the Second Amendment. Oh, that's interesting. An alien legally in the United States is not prohibited from purchasing firearms. Isn't that fascinating? There has to be something a visa holder can promote or say, where we'd say that's enough. And is it only the overthrow of the government? Is that it? Is that the only thing? The violent overthrow of the government gets you kicked out of the country? And is that true too? I mean, Texter, does that mean that nope, they can even advocate for that too? You're fine. Because if you and I did it, it's horrible. It could even be a crime, depending upon where and when and how you say it and what you pitch. But nobody can kick you out of the country for that. Visa holders might be a little bit different. 303-696-1971. Guess who has far less information and pain than he had before being introduced to UltraCur? That's this curcumin-based all-natural product that the wizards at UltraCur have put together and made available for free to you. Yeah, a 3-day free supply. Here's why it matters. bunch of people out there pitching all sorts of things, and they want you to spend, hey, just a little bit of money and you get this 30-day supply. No, you don't need to do that. You just need to go to your local natural grocers, go find the vitamin manager, say, hey, I'd like to try this 3-day supply thing. It's not only safe for you, 48 hours is how long it took 50% of the people who tried it to experience some sort of relief, anti-inflammation relief. It's an antioxidant. It's pro all the good stuff, anti all the bad stuff. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you that these folks have consulted medical folks in putting this thing together. And this product is the way towards reducing some of the inflammation and pain that you have. Do you know 50% of that group in that 48-hour group, 50% of them experience some kind of relief within 2 hours? I mean, isn't it worth just trying for 3 days so that you can be part of that group of people that can say, hey, this made a difference for me. 3-day free supply. Got to ask the vitamin manager. You can also check them out at getultranow.com. That's getultra, ULTRA.com. When we come back, I promise it's going to be Tony. It's going to be Frank. It's going to be the texters, you and me, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
So my question to you is, should students who are here on a visa, who gather and chant that slogan and actively advocate for the elimination of Israel and attacks on Jewish individuals, whether in the Middle East or here in the United States, as we're seeing on college campuses, should those students have their visas revoked?
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Great question that Senator Hawley asks. Should they have their visas revoked? What should the federal government do to either employees of the federal government who say these horrible, evil, toxic, anti-Semitic things, or to visa holders who do the same? What should the federal government do? Going right back to the phone lines. Tony, you're on 710 KNUS. Tony, what do you think?
Hey, George, it's interesting conversation, and I think it's a slippery slope. But let me give you the hypothetical. So somebody goes onto their social media and rants and raves about how evil Jews are and so forth, and then says, and their biggest synagogue in town is at this address, and then a day later or whatever, somebody goes in and either attempts to shoot up the place or successfully shoots up the place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, should that guy be fired?
Well, I think anytime that anyone's advocating for violence here within the country, I feel differently about that. Yeah, for sure. In fact, there may be actual criminal laws that deal with that too, whether it's a solicitation
well, I mean,
or
it's not,
something.
maybe they didn't say do anything violent, just simply just ranted and raved. They're evil and they've done this to our country. They're bad people. And just by the way, here's their synagogue. This is the address of their synagogue. They don't really say do anything violent. They just rant and rave and then say there's the address.
Yeah. And the question is, what should happen to them?
Yeah. I mean, should they be fired?
Or who do they work for?
Well, a federal government agency. Well, I don't care what agency.
I'd fire
them.
My guess is and here's something I don't know. And that is, I think the federal government probably has some rules on limiting what you can do on social media regarding certain things. I just don't know if this fits that, but I hope it does. I don't want anybody to be able to advocate wink, wink, nudge, nudge towards violence and just hide behind the First Amendment, because we know the First Amendment isn't a we protect you from all things at all times kind of thing. I mean, there's yelling fire in a crowded theater kind of stuff that's in there. Clear and present danger. Okay. This could be that. I don't know.
Well, how would that be any different than Donald Trump going on to his social media and ranting and raving about how Obama is the enemy of the people, and then saying, okay, by the way, here's his address in Washington. And then a day later, they pick up a guy with a semi-automatic and a machete trying to enter his house. How's that different?
I don't.
We're not firing him. We're not saying that eliminates Donald Trump from being able to do anything he wants to do. I mean,
yeah, but I don't think he's
right.
I don't think him simply saying, hey, this person's an enemy and all this is quite the same thing as hating them, eviling them, and oh, by the way, here's the address where you can go find them. That feels like a missing component to that speech that makes all the difference in the world.
I guess I got lost there, because that's essentially what he did. So
hold on. He said, and oh, by the way, as a follow on to his comments, here's where the guy lives.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
And then
you're going to have to shoot me.
And then, you know what? Billy will find that. I mean, he could find that. They picked up a guy that was Secret Service picked up a guy 24 hours later trying to get into his house in Washington, D.C. after Trump had ranted and raved about how evil he was and the damage he's done to our country and how bad of a guy he is.
And he said, there's his house.
He didn't say there's his house. He said, here's the address.
Donald Trump read somebody's address out in one of these rants.
Yes, in his social media.
Yeah, I'm going to need to see that. That would cause me concern too, but I would need to see that. Is it your position then that Hawley's wrong on both accounts, whether it's a student on a visa that's here or an employee of the federal government? When you say horrible things like this, there should be no action taken.
I'm appalled by it, and I'm caught on this one, this example I gave you, because that happened. But that's not dissuading us from supporting this guy. And he's done exactly what you are describing as something you find distasteful, and maybe they should be fired, maybe they should be evicted from the country, and yet you're, again, waiting a proof. But even if you have proof of that, then does that change in any way, shape, or form
Tony,
how you would view?
It's a great question, man, to get us to the next hour. You've talked us through. Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it. Frank, I promise you hang on. We're going to get to you here. Stick around. This topic has some legs, man. There's some texts that have coming in here too. Is this a First Amendment issue? Is it un-American to kick these people out or fire them for this? George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS, wrapping up a topic that we had started in the last hour regarding a couple exchanges between Missouri's Senator Josh Hawley and the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. That's a guy named Myorkas. And it was an exchange that covered two different things. One was the idea that an employee who has been suspended, but an employee of DHS, who said some pretty anti-Semitic, Israel, Jewish hating things on social media, whether or not such a person should be fired from their job. And then there was another exchange that involved deporting visa holders who engage in protests in support of Hamas and say some other similar things. And it's really gotten us on a conversation of the First Amendment, what should happen here, and does this open up Pandora's box to some other things? Some texters that we've had, not only does the First Amendment rights extend, I think it's not only do the First Amendment rights extend to visa holders, but so does, the second, never mind. Your last caller is implying that Trump's speech is on the same level as the anti-Israel speech of that employee. The difference is history. Anti-Jewish rhetoric has led to the death of millions. The Democrat Party is in trouble. They call us racist. We call them Jew haters. This is why Biden has not embraced the language of the extreme left. Another text. Callers Tony and Joe from Arvada would make a great couple. From everything is Trump's fault to Trump is Jesus. That's funny. Here's another one. How is that not hate speech? Well, I agree. There's no crime, though, for hate speech. I don't think hate speech is a crime. It's something else. Government. Here's another text. Government is the problem. Individual liberty is the solution. Like the Second Amendment, the first is clear. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. U.S. laws apply to U.S. citizens. Employers can do and restrict. Yes, that's true. Illegal aliens, green card holders, visa holders are not citizens, and they have no rights in our country whatsoever. I don't believe that. I don't think that's true. I don't think simply because you're a visa holder, it means the police can just walk into your house without a warrant or arrest you and throw you in a jail without any constitutionally protected due process. I don't believe that. So they do have rights whatsoever. The question is, are they the same ones? If I had to guess, I'd be inclined to say they are the same ones, but I'm not sure. And maybe the bigger question is, should they be provided the same protections if they don't already? And this person says it does not matter what the liberal courts have said about this. I'm sorry, it absolutely matters what the courts have said about this, liberal or otherwise. If you expect people to honor Heller, then you got to be the one that honors the other opinions that they give that are not Heller or something else. 303-696-1971. Frank, you were very patient, nice enough to hold. You're on 710. What do you think?
You know, I got to put on my Joe from Arvada voice this morning.
Here we go.
Doggone it, George. You just keep coming up with all these interesting topics.
George.
Require a little comment. You know, I think that we ought to put an asterisk by this alley case with Hawley and Myorkas and follow that closely, because it raises so many interesting questions on further investigation. What are some of her other beliefs? Of course, we'll never know the results of that investigation. Does she really believe in the U.S.? Is she required to swear an oath of allegiance to the U.S. As a immigrant or a visa holder, but taking a job in the Department of Homeland Security? I don't know. Are they required to swear any kind of oath?
I presume they are. I would think that to work for the federal government, you've got to swear and uphold and defend and all that other stuff for sure. And my guess is too, at DHS at some level, don't there have to be like background checks? You know what I mean? Where you get interviewed by, I've been interviewed multiple times for me and for other people who have certain security clearances. I just hope at DHS they do some of that.
Well, in today's world, you would also think that would entail looking at their social media posts. And if she has none, and this is absolutely clean, I guess these are harbored beliefs, but it took some action by Hamas for her to verbalize these things. The other question it raises is how many other DHS employees feel the same way? And then you get into this thing of should they give them a questionnaire to find out their beliefs? And does that trigger DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusivity training? And should there be re-education for these type of people?
I don't know the answer, man. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think ought to happen in a perfect world, in a Frank-driven world? What happens to the employee? What happens to the college visa holder?
If we want to believe in our federal government, you'd like to think there's a certain high level of people that really do believe in the U.S., the Constitution, its principles, want to uphold this. Because if we don't, I suppose if it falls below a certain percentage, then there's an undermining, a slow undermining of not only the population through social media, what they can say, but also a fifth column inside the government to encourage this. But are they any worse than the lifetime Democrats who are back in surrounding Washington, drawing their salaries, livelihood, and pensions from the feds by totally believing in the bureaucratic system, not questioning it, not wanting it to make it any more efficient like Trump was trying to push? You know, all these things need to be asked, and I think with a slim majority in the House, that's the only chance right now we have to ask those questions. I mean, obviously the Dems have already gone on public record saying it will shoot down any kind of investigation. So we know where they stand. But what questions can Hawley and the majority of Republicans bring to the fore and use their power to at least launch some investigations that ask these questions for the U.S. public? They're the only hope we have.
Yeah, they are. Listening to Hawley, though, again, why berate this guy over what do you morally think? What do you morally think? And I'm like, I don't understand why that's relevant to this discussion. And Myorkas, who is just so dry and it seemed disimpassioned, you know, he can't get through the answer without being talked over the top of. But even if he could, I mean, the only right answer I can think of is my opinion about what's moral or not is just not relevant to this conversation. If this is Myorkas's Department of Homeland Security, that's great, but it has a U and an S in front of it. And that means I'm bound by the authority given to me by the law. And until I know what that is, I can't take a position. I just don't know why that's so hard to say.
Well, Hawley got on his political high horse a bit and stood his ground, which I think is okay, fine. He's got his constituents
he
to
does,
represent. Yeah. But Myorkas is a different animal. He's kind of seasoned at this. He's used to taking this kind of interrogation abuse. One wonders where he really is coming from, too. What is his ultimate agenda for the U.S. Border? And is he in line with this? Is he really trying to protect the laws? Is he doing the bidding of the higher ups? I don't know. But the bottom line is we're getting progressively infiltrated by a lot of people that are not vetted. And I question both the short term, the medium term, and the long term effects of all these people coming into our country.
I do too, man. Frank, thank you again. Very thoughtful. I appreciate you keeping us going on this at 303-696-1971. That's Frank's line. It is open now. Here's some text. I'm guessing a visa holder is held to the rules of law and our Constitution. If you show defiance to things our country stands for, then I think they get revoked. I mean, why do you want to be here if you don't agree? Just to take advantage of the First Amendment? No, I imagine you want all the social stuff that comes, all the social support the government gives you on the backs of the taxpayers. Here's another one. What's the difference between Trump on trial for inciting the January 6th insurrection and this woman inciting the murder of Jewish American citizens? I don't see her language as inciting the murder of Jewish American citizens. I thought my recollection was that what she had said, and we can replay that long clip in a minute here, but was that she was talking about Israel and like death to Israel and all those people out there. If it was to advocate for violence against Jewish Americans, I feel very differently about that. But to take a position against Israel, does that mean you can't work for the U.S. government? Even if it's a poisonous, toxic, anti-Semitic position, does that mean you can't work for the U.S. government? Yeah, I don't know. George, I've read the Constitution and our First Amendment never gave anyone the right for hate speech or threatening speech. Inciting a riot, it does not protect people from that. People have been changing that. Well, keep in mind the First Amendment doesn't give you anything. It doesn't give you the right for any kind of speech. It protects an existing right that you have just by virtue of drawing breath on this great free land, and it does so by prohibiting government from taking certain steps. So it doesn't outlaw hate speech. It doesn't outlaw threatening speech. It doesn't outlaw speech that might provide a clear and present danger. What it does is it prevents the government from making certain laws, and then by way of interpretation says it doesn't cover those things. So the government could make that a violation. I just don't know. I don't know of any crime in the state of Colorado that's just hate speech. I mean, I've heard of hate crimes, but I'd have to go back and look at harassment. I just don't see any law that criminalizes hate speech. 303-696-1971. Winston Smith, you're on 710. What do you think?
Well, I think I think if you look at history, and I'm a historian, I believe we're just going the way of the Roman Empire. I mean, generally speaking. And it's just a different cast of characters. And I talked to your producer, and I know him, and I just think I listened to the gentleman before me. The bottom line is that, as you said, we're being infiltrated, and the people that are making the laws are basically bending to suit their convenience. I mean, and to me, it's 1984. I mean, coming to life, and it always has been. I've told Peter that over and over again, because the news media wants to make the news. They don't want to report it.
What's your sense then of how that concern, that belief based on history, applies to this situation? Like, what should we do to reverse that?
I don't know. First of all, you have a public that's ill-informed of past things, of past history. And I say this may sound totally unrelated, but when you take down all these statues from the Civil War times of people, I would leave them up to remind people of what exactly happened. Now, my point is that people, right, and I didn't answer your question. What I'm trying to do is go around to the point where people today have our children and young adults, no idea what exactly our forefathers did. I mean, sincerely, I don't say that to be derogatorily toward them. They should have the right to feel what they have and feel what they say. But when they're cornered, that automatically comes out, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're this, you're that, because they have no background of knowledge of what happened in the past. And George, I want to say something, and you may totally disagree, but I believe when you take God out of the law becomes God. And my point is, he's the ultimate lawgiver. But that's for me. That's not for you. That's just what I feel.
I appreciate that, but when it comes to the affairs of man down here in society, the laws on the books are the ones that get enforced by men against men.
George, I did something very wrong ago. Your predecessor, Carol Chambers, prosecuted me for it. I made a mistake, something stupid.
Yeah.
And I paid it. Did restitution. I did whatever.
Oh, Winston, man, we're losing you, buddy. We're losing you. I don't know if you can grab hold of a metal object. Well, you're gone just like that. Listen, if you got some more thoughts, you can call in. I think we got the gist of what you're saying there. I appreciate that. What I didn't ultimately get from you, though, was what does that mean? If we're not going to tear down the statues of the Confederates that we honored in the past because we want them to be a reminder, does that also mean we don't cancel out the hateful employees? 303-696-1971. Winston, you're back.
I'm very sorry. I'm driving through Greenwood Village, and sometimes there's a bubble here, I guess.
It's called Greenwood
honestly,
Village. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, George, I think that we are at a tipping point in our country, and I hear all these people, the FBI, we're going to have these bomb type situations like the Hamas did in southern Israel, and I fear because I believe eventually the people that believe in this country and that are patriots, they're going to rise up. And I hate to say that, but I really believe it, because they're
I
going to
hope
get
it doesn't
fed up.
come to that. But Winston, before we cut you loose, man, tell me, should this employee have been fired for what they said? Should visa holders be deported for what they say?
Well, I believe they should be called on the carpet. And I believe, but nobody's going to do that.
What does that look like, though, to call them on the carpet? What does that mean?
Well, you know what? Maybe you put them on leave without pay. And you say, you know what?
But
You
isn't that
just can't do
punishing
this.
them for their speech? And if you can do that, why not fire them? Do you know what I mean? It's a taking either way.
Yeah.
You're either taking their
Right.
pay or you're taking their job. If you can do one, you can certainly do the other.
Well, okay, I agree with you, but I got to say something. When I go to DIA, I flew in and out I've been in and out twice. I forgot to take my iPad out of my, this is a crazy, but I forgot to take my iPad out of my briefcase. And I was questioned profusely by people that weren't even born in this country. And I get kind of like, I'm biting my tongue because I know if I say something, I'm not going to be on the plane, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I think, frankly, the people that make the laws in the state and the country, sometimes these laws are just, you can't legislate behavior. And do you agree with that?
Say it again.
You can't legislate people's behavior. You cannot say because what we're going to get to
I
is,
actually think
George,
that's all we do is we legislate behavior. We put up prohibitions on conduct as a way of steering people to different behavior. You can't go across the street and punch your neighbor in the face. That's legislating behavior. But we're legislating in a way. We're saying, yes, you can choose to do it, but then we punish you for it. Well, unless you're in Denver.
Right. And well, that's the reason, because nobody takes personal responsibility for anything anymore. There is no personal responsibility, in my opinion, in this country, period. Whether it's white collar crime, blue collar crime, it don't matter. There's no risk. I worked for a corporation in Florida, and I was doing it part-time. I caught employees stealing. Nothing happened to them. Nothing. The corporation let them go. They weren't prosecuted.
Okay. Private entity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Private.
I get it. That's on them.
And you know what? Because it's politically incorrect. It's not politically. It's basically, I caught some people that have to be black. They were stealing this company blind, and they were selling stuff at a flea market. And nothing happened to them because they were black. And I thought to myself, and the reason I left the position is because it was exasperating. They're paying me good money. I'm catching folks doing stuff. They won't do anything. So why pay me? It's lunacy. Absolute lunacy. And we can't do this because I said, no, you guys got to we've lost not our moral compass. We've lost our compass with behavior. There is no right and wrong anymore.
Well, there's certainly a moral relativism. And Winston, thanks for the call and the follow-on call. I appreciate the conversation. 303-696-1971. Text, the human races have to have rules and laws, and we call them the 10 Commandments. You can't take that out of school. You can, and we have. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying that we have, and I don't want to turn this into just a religious discussion here, because it's bigger than that. I mean, First Amendment here is something that's either going to apply across the board or there's exceptions, and maybe there are for visa holders. I don't know. But, Myorkas was not going to sit there and look at Josh Hawley at this time and say, Senator, we have a First Amendment that protects even some of the horrible things that people say, and we can't go around firing them because they say horrible things. Now, I don't know if that's true for DHS, but it feels like under the First Amendment, it should be. Not as a private employer, but maybe it should be. Because that horrible thing, that person gets fired for that. You know what's coming next? Someone talking smack about some political opponent of theirs or the president's, or somebody talking about how the election was rigged and all the people that have conspired to keep the wrong president who's not really the president in office. Those people are treasonous and we should treat them like traitors. I mean, where have you heard language like this? And if a federal employee says that, I just don't know. I don't know. Is that the direction that we want to go? Now, we know that there are Hatch Act rules that limit your political speech that you can engage in, but this doesn't strike me like that with this one employee. It just strikes me as poisonous, toxic, anti-Semitic talk. 303-696-1971. Can I tell you about QC Kinetics, by the way? These are the folks that do the regenerative medicine thing, and they do it, frankly, just better than everybody else. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can take all their reviews words for it. Those are the folks like you who heard this and picked up the phone and called them at 303-900-8986. They called their local medical professionals. They asked them questions, grilled them on the information they needed to know to maybe use their HSA or FSA or whatever to help make this magic happen for them. But those folks that called 303-900 8986, and then made the decision to avail themselves of this completely outpatient, just one needle, one shot takes care of these individual sites where you have these pains and this injury, whether it's hips, knees, joints of any kind. Why go under the knife if you don't have to? Why take pills forever if you don't have to? And QC Kinetics says, call us. You don't have to. 303-900-8986. Spend the time to have the call, and then you're armed with another option. You can check them out at qckinetics.com. That's qckinetics.com. When we come back, we'll get through some more of the text. Something else I wanted to chat with you about, too. And the phones, 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Some text to get through before I bring up this other topic here. 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States, blah, 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 puts all this stuff out here. Illegal aliens, green card holders, and visa holders are not U.S. citizens. If our enemies in other nations have legal rights under U.S. laws, then our wars are illegal. And what? If our enemies in other nations have legal rights under the U.S. laws? No, that's not the same thing, man. Folks that are here within our borders, especially visa holders, which means they're with our consent, to hold otherwise, man, would be to suggest that the police could just show up and go, oh, visa holder, and just barge right in and take stuff because they have no protections. They merely get to live because we permit them to live. They have no rights here. And apparently they're not going to be bound by the laws either. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me, man. The human race has to have rules and laws. Oh, yeah, there we got that one. George, is your interpretation of death to Israel only to Israel, but not American Jews? Is that what she meant? I don't know what she meant. Is that the business we want to be in? Somebody says something like death to Israel, if that's what the words that she used, and we're going to try to interpret that and extrapolate that to a meaning broad enough to construe attacks on Jews. If I was an American Jew, would I be horrified at that statement? 100%. Is that her intent? I don't know. Should we put her under the light? Make her tell us, what did you mean by death to Israel? I'm just not sure. Is that where we're going with this? And if that happens, where do we go next? Here's friend Eric Manning. George, this is again, capitalizing every word and then capitalizing every letter laying on. I don't understand, Eric. It doesn't do anything for the content. It's actually distracting. George, this is my people at the Pentagon. Good morning, my brother. I hear that these two people are somewhat to be evil spies towards our USA country, meaning that this woman, whatever her name is, and this man, which he has lost his security clearance at the Pentagon. Well, I'd love to have them lose their security clearance. I think that's different. They're not entitled to the security clearance. It's not the same thing. Your last call. Oh, when you take the moral question out of America law, you lose America. I completely disagree. I think morality is a basis for many of our laws. But what moral question is to be answered by whether somebody should lose their job over what they say? I mean, how do you come down on that? If you say the wrong thing, of course, something with which we disagree, you should lose your job. What's the morality in that? I mean, once you start saying, is it moral? Then all of a sudden the First Amendment becomes like written in pencil and you can start erasing stuff because morally speaking, should you be allowed to say profanity? Morally, should you be allowed to advocate for misogyny or multiple spouse marriage? Or, I mean, think about something that you would just find, you want to advocate for prostitution, sex workers. That's moral.
Several years ago, our current House Speaker, Mr. Johnson, morally argued that homosexuality is evil and that morally we should, by law, restrict sexual activity to only married couples, meaning that if you went and did the Humpty Hump and you weren't married, you could face jail time. Morally, so for as long as we're making morals the decision-making proposition here.
I don't have any doubt that there's a level of morality that generates our laws, like murder and theft and all those things. But to suggest that somehow that's got to be the consideration, like Josh Hawley's question, in my opinion, was dumb. Like, do you morally think she should be fired? That's irrelevant.
Well, what it was is, as we've talked about, it's a series of gotcha questions. It's not about actually finding truth or making things better or rooting out the waste or anything else. It's about finding the clickbait.
Nemo.
Finding the thing that is going to be played on either the liberal or conservative media, the thing that is going to get traction on social media. It is those questions and those sessions have become so much more about an individual's performance than it is about actually finding anything having to do with fact, because you're absolutely right. Hawley's question about morally is irrelevant because we are not asking Myorkas to enforce the laws based on his morals. In fact, if he came in and said, morally, I don't think that the U.S. should have any borders. I see nothing wrong with letting anybody who comes through the southern border or northern border, come through as much as they want, as often as they want, and we don't have to check. That's how I feel about it morally, and that's what we're going to do. Should that impact his job? No. Regardless of what his morals are, he needs to enforce the tenets of his job. And that's part of the reason they're in this session right now, is because there are allegations that he has not been enforcing his job, not based on his morals, but based on what the qualifications and outlines are. So the morals, you're right, are irrelevant in that conversation. But Hawley just wants to get him saying something so that he can put it up on the social medias and get clicks and then turn around and fundraise off of it. But that's where we are.
And I'm not even sure he wants an answer. I think he just wants to confront him with it. And that becomes the clickbait stuff. That got him on Fox News.
Oh, absolutely.
Raising his voice and talking over him and all. And again, in no way do I think Myorkas has been a very good Department of Homeland Security secretary. I'm not saying that at all. Should the guy be out of the position? Yeah, I think so, just based on the southern border. But that's not the point here. It's just that some of this stuff is frustrating because, one, on a gut level, my own personal gut, I would say I want every employee who would say things like that be gone from the federal government. I don't want them to. Visa holders, if we can kick them out, I want to kick that. But then I think to myself, okay, now what?
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah. Where do we draw that line based on speech? And if, as one of our callers earlier pointed out, and one of the texters as well, that if our First Amendment isn't there to defend the speech that you find offensive and abhorrent, then it shouldn't exist, because that's the only reason. The speech you agree with doesn't need any defense. This is about the stuff that you don't agree with. And my example would be
horrible.
Rashida Tlaib. Absolutely atrocious social media statements about what's going on between Israel and Hamas. One of the most egregious and horrible things is she still has up on her social media, last time I checked, the false allegation that it was Israel that hit the hospital. She has not changed that, despite all the information that has come out, because it helps her. Morally, that is reprehensible. But do I think that her ability to speak should be curtailed? No. Do I think that she'd be summarily expelled from the government? No. I think that is her voters' responsibility. They should be given that ability. Just like, and it's a little bit of a reach, but tangentially, just like the court case we have going on here about President Trump, that I don't think that it is the Secretary of State's purview to decide in this instance who's on the ballot or not. The voters should be allowed to decide.
Well, that won't happen here either, because they've gone to the courts to happen.
Exactly,
I also think
ridiculous.
it applies to terror-loving Timmy Hamastes too.
Very good.
I'm offended by everything he said. I do think it makes him unfit to serve in the legislature.
Yeah.
But I don't think the government steps in and removes him. His House leadership may choose to do that as a caucus, but I'm not looking for a law to prevent him.
No.
I'm looking for him to either step down or voters to say, hard pass, man. You can't be our guy.
Or his own caucus.
Or his own caucus.
And you guys can self-correct. That's fine. That is appropriate. But we would not want something from Polis's office or anywhere else or any
or a
AG's
law
office.
passed. I don't want any of that
to come in and
garbage.
say no. But this should be self-correcting. And we need to be okay with that. And it sucks that sometimes that free speech is there primarily to protect the stuff that you disagree
Someone
with.
texted in, police and other public workers can lose their jobs if they post criticism about their workplace. I believe the Supreme Court has supported that. That could be true. I'm not sure that applies here. This really isn't criticism about the government. And frankly, I think if you are crap talking the leadership of the organization you work for, it makes you a risk, I think, to soldier on in that capacity. But that's not what I heard from this woman in this particular clip. Maybe we'll have a chance to play it here in a minute. What I do want to tell you about is Gay Rebel with Empower Home Team at Keller Williams. I talk to you about Gay every single day, and I'm proud to do it because she has been, one, making families through her passion outside of real estate with adoption, and then helping those families get into homes, get out of the homes that no longer serve their needs and get into the homes that they want, the homes that they need, whether it's from a move out of convenience, a move to get closer to grandkids or children, or a move because you have to upsize, downsize, maybe respond to a job offer. It doesn't matter. Gay's dealt with every one of these circumstances. She'll help you navigate these crazy, crazy real estate waters. I dare you to go onto the Wall Street Journal website and find 2 or 3 articles not right on the front page about real estate. They're there every single day. I read them every single day. That's just the Wall Street Journal. Your news feed, like mine, probably has all of those things as well. Call her. Get the insights of her and her team. 833-301-SOLD. 833-301-SOLD. Sells faster than others, sells for more money than others. They make promises that they can't sell your home at the right time, at the right price that you agree upon. They make up for it with the money. Check them out at Sell With Certainty. That tells you right there what they're invested in. sellwithcertaintycolorado.com. sellwithcertaintycolorado.com. That's Gay Ribble. Hey, listen, let's do this. Got some text to get through here. Let's cut away for a break. I wanted to tell you about this student walkout in school. I'm not sure we're going to have time to do it. Maybe I'll have to take this up on Friday. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em out shelves, your clutter transformation experts create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em out shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly to clear the clutter. Contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em out shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. It's the final segment of the show. It's a good time to catch up on some of the texts that have been here. Here's our friend Joan sends in some screenshot of someone else's social media post. Let's see here. In Senate hearing, DHS Myorkas confirms over 800,000 known gotaways at the border in fiscal year 2023. My God, that is just absolute incompetence. Myorkas also repeatedly refused to answer Marshall's questions asking how many illegal immigrants have ties to known terror groups. Yikes. I mean, horrible stuff. And then, of course, Joan follows in by saying, you're missing the big picture. Today's conversation was interesting as you started with the 20-page complaint against a law enforcer and ends with stating morals have no voice in law. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. So stand with Sarah Williams and do not question a recusal. Who the hell is Sarah Williams? Who is Sarah Williams? You think the law is above God's laws and you view about the law is your religion. What? No, I don't think that, Joan, but I'm pretty sure as a prosecutor, I can't take someone to court for violating the 10 Commandments or any other provision of the Bible. I mean, that's just silliness, man. We regulate ourselves and protect ourselves by instituting laws that prohibit the evil people from doing things to us or providing a punishment if they do that. What's hard about that? You guys take it beyond what he ever said to active support of, here it is. Really surprised you guys keep calling him Timmy Hamas. That feels like it could be actionable. I say, how so? And by the way, First Amendment. Here's the answer. You guys take it beyond what he ever said to active support of Hamas. Maybe he did say it and I don't know it, but it feels like you're taking a liberty. 1A doesn't cover defamation and slander. You know this man. Arguably, he's a public figure, but why open KNUS up to a demand I'm an attorney to every time I hear the alarm goes off in my head that screams liability exposure? I couldn't disagree more. Not only is he a public figure, but I am happy to defend my belief that he is celebrating Hamas by what was just captured on video and his refusal later to denounce it when confronted. Just the video where he's just a punk with that guy. And he's like, three people, they're going to watch your crappy little video, Roger. And he says, hey, you won't decry. He goes, what of it? What about it? I mean, I'm happy to have that. In fact, Tim, if you're out there, do the radio station and me a favor. Please bring the First Amendment lawsuit. Please bring the lawsuit claiming that you've been defamed and slandered. Happy to have that all day long. That's a winner for me, the station, the Constitution, and freedom and decency. Peace out. And you do not follow the Trump trial because it will bring you face to face with the corrupted law. What trial, Joan? What trial am I not following? And interpreting why I don't follow something is a fool's errand, man. You don't know anything about that. The U.S. is being invaded, George. Do you believe that an invading army has legal rights under the 14th Amendment? If not, why do you afford those rights to illegal aliens? Some are literally soldiers invading the USA to harm us. No difference. No rights. Well, once again, man, you have contorted the statements that I have made because what we were talking about was visa holders who are not invading soldiers from another force. But let's pretend for a moment that we were at war and we captured some foreign soldiers. There are actual laws that protect them as well. And they are a series of Geneva Conventions and associated protocols that take place from them. This idea that it's Katie barred the door because somebody breaks into the country, and I don't want them here, by the way, I want them to be deported, but they break into the country, it means that pretty much anybody can go up and just blow their brains out because they're an invading soldier is utter garbage. It doesn't help us advance the conversation. And while we're on the topic of morality, explain to me how that's moral to do that. Which part of Jesus' teaching would be find the person who broke into the country and do whatever you want to them? 303-696-1971 number. Joan comes back. Joan Wallace. I hate autocorrect. Yeah, okay. Refusal to condemn on cue is not equivalent to expressing support. No, but showing up and being on the stage of a bunch of people celebrating the Hamas attack while it's going on, waving the Palestinian flags while it's going on, yes, anybody is capable of interpreting that as him celebrating what Hamas did. Those people sure look like they were enthusiastically celebrating what Hamas was doing. It didn't seem to me they were providing any distance between themselves and Hamas. This is a silly conversation. There's just no chance at all that this is a violation of anybody's rights to be protected from defamation or slander. That's just nonsense, just silliness. George, I've heard Dennis Prager say many, many times that the human race is not naturally good. We have to be taught right and wrong. And when they live in a society where there are no rules, and I'm going to say living without Judeo-Christian values, you have nothing but murder and chaos. Maybe true. Listen, I'm probably not the kids, but I do believe I can go with the Hobbesian thing that life outside of a regulated society is nasty, brutish, and short.
Yeah.
I do think that man left to his own devices makes a whole bunch of self-centered and selfish decisions. That
interesting there, because and I like the noun, and I'm sure you didn't use it purposefully, but the idea of man makes certain decisions. And my question in your ear that we talked about when the person was talking about the fact that human beings are evil is, so you're telling me that children are evil. You're telling me, and that's the difficulty I have, and understand Prager's position on it. But that's where I have some cognitive dissonance, is looking at the idea of children. Now, children can be maniacs and can be very selfish and self-serving, but the idea that if we leave a bunch of kindergartners, first graders, second graders alone for an hour, 2 hours inside of a setting, that what we're going to come back and find is evil. I disagree with that.
Well, let's call that experiment Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Let's call that Lord of the Flies.
That was older too. And there is part of that. And the evil inside of that, if we get into it, and this is the interesting part of it, and I love Lord of the Flies, the evil becomes and manifests when they're trying to set up a society. That's where that comes in, when they're trying to set up the parameters and the rules, or where some of the evils come in. And that's some of the difficulty. And that's some of the layers inside of what the author is telling you, is that sometimes going after what we see to be the good can have some other consequences. But again, he's not defending them, but that's some of the lesson inside of there. And that's the why
I do think outside the confines of society, and I'd like it to be based on Judeo-Christian values too, but outside of the confines of that, I think people would be prone to devolve into a might makes right in every circumstance thing.
I would say that is true with adults, not as much with kids. But with adults, absolutely that would be. And so I think that's where that dichotomy, because then does it mean that we are at our core evil, or as we grow up without influence of X, Y, or Z, or without parameters and other societal controls, we then devolve, in my opinion, into evil? I think it's an interesting conversation, but
here's a guy that knows the rules that society lives by and is happy to fight for your rights under them. His name is Dan Caplis. When somebody hurts you or a loved one, not because they're evil, maybe they're just negligent, maybe it's an accident, maybe it's recklessness, maybe it's a corporation or a trucking company that has just simply stopped caring about the risk it poses to others on the road, or it's a drunk driver who's up to bat again for the 15th time behind the wheel, and this time they hurt or kill someone you care about. Dan Caplis and Babar Wahid will hold them accountable. That's a big deal. Hold them accountable. They will fight as long and as hard as you're willing to have them fight, and it costs you nothing. All they do is get a piece of whatever justice they're able to bring to you. That's it. Give them a call at 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551. Society has rules. Those rules are meant to protect you. And when someone violates those rules, Dan Caplis, Babar Wahid, they're there to step in and try to get you whatever justice they can out of this system. You can also check them out at dancaplisLaw.com, Dan Caplis, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. Look, that does it for this show. I appreciate the conversations we had. I didn't get to the one about the student walkout for safety. We'll do that one on Friday. Pete Boyles is going to come in tomorrow and dominate the airwaves for 4 beautiful hours, just like old times. And then I'll be back on Friday, as long as the remote equipment, the nuclear football, works, and I have every reason to think it is. You guys have a great first day of November. It's George Brauchler, 710 KUS.